Tonight we've got a very, very information-packed show. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us and for your support. We really appreciate that. We are walking through this minefield of events together that, it just seems to be getting more and more, it seems to be getting more and more severe in terms of what we're seeing and what we're feeling and what we're finding. And I had a lengthy conversation with a good friend of mine, an intelligence insider, who was talking about the issue of what's going on with all the bullet purchases, the ammunition purchases, all of the DHS movements, all of the DHS intent. They're going to war against us, the American people, Joe. And you have your sources, I've got my sources, we have our sources. I've talked to Steve Quayle today. He's talked to his financial insider. You've talked to Stan Deo today. You've talked to your people. But the bottom line here is we're seeing a convergence of events, and front and center, that I believe, front and center anyway, I'm going to adjust this for a moment here. I believe front and center today, what we're seeing is the financial aspect of things. We are about ready to see a financial collapse inside this country. Actually, globally, our accounts are going to be looted. If you have money in the bank, you know what? It's up to you. Let me just say this: if you have money in the stock market or in investments, annuities, that type of thing, Lord help you, and I mean that. If you have money in deposit accounts, I've got to say that it's going to be an issue, because what you have seen in Cyprus is going to happen here in the West. What the power brokers have done, and I'm going to go over this first, just very briefly. By the way, I can't see anything. Is that normal?
Yes.
I'm looking at the monitor.
Level of blindness is normal. Before you get into your information, Keith Hanson will be joining us about 15 minutes.
That's right.
Monday, we have a very special show. Steve with Financial Insider V is coming on. And then Wednesday, Standeo will be joining us as well next week. So Monday, V and Mr. Quayle, and Wednesday, Standeo for 2 hours. And tonight, Keith Hanson for an hour.
All right, and Monday's show is going to be from 9 to midnight, by the way. We're going to adjust that for Mountain Time. It's going to be 9 to midnight Eastern Time on Monday. And today, by the way, is Good Friday, and hopefully everyone has taken a moment, or more than a moment, to realize the sacrifice made by our Lord and Savior 2,000 plus years ago, and what that means for us, for our salvation. But the information about the economy, what we have here, what I've got here, is basically high treason. When Joe came to the studio today, and we came to the office and we were talking about this, there was something that we went over, and I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know how I really missed this or downplayed this. Back in November of 2011, which was well over a year ago, economist Kyle Bass had interviewed a senior member of the Obama administration about the planned solutions for repairing the U.S. economy and the trade deficit. Now think about this, ladies and gentlemen. He asked this high-level Obama spokesman, how are we going to grow exports if we don't allow nominal wage deflation? Now, forget that question. Just don't even worry about the question. The question really is, just forget about the question. The answer by this high-level Obama administration official, actually a senior Obama administration official, is this: we're just going to kill the dollar. We're just going to kill the dollar. Think about those words. Think about the word kill. He didn't say devalue. He didn't say attempt to repair. No, we are just going to kill the dollar. Steve Quayle, I talked to him about this, and he said, Oh, yeah. I knew about this, and we talked about this, and Joe said, oh, we talked about this. In fact, we played the clip.
Yeah, we covered this when it was made public.
Right. Well,
and I have the audio queued up if you want, when you want to play it.
Well, let's play it now.
Okay. This is the clip you're referring to. Senior Obama official says we are going to kill the dollar.
You're in charge. You're in charge of this thing called the United States government/budget, and it gives you political and fiscal authority to do, quote unquote, the right thing.
Yeah.
Would you mark to market balance sheets today and create the economic downside that would follow, or would you put in place or attempt to put in place some kind of economic policies to get you to a better place down some theoretical road?
I mean, how do you solve a problem where you're spending 10% of, you're running a 10% fiscal deficit? You're not going to get growth in the absence of private sector credit demand. So the government's idea right now is we're going to export our way out of this. And when I asked a senior member of the Obama administration last week, how are we going to grow exports if we won't allow nominal wage deflation? And he says, we're just going to kill the dollar. And I said, okay, more you mean. So that's the only answer. And
that's a dead answer.
It's a dead answer, but that's where we're headed.
Folks, that is the definition of high treason. When you kill a nation's economy, when you kill the United States economy, what you're doing, essentially, is you're killing the sovereignty. You're wiping the sovereignty of a nation away. This was set into motion by the globalists, by the I asked my source, I said, when exactly did this process start? He said, well, you can pick any date, pick any time period, you can pick whatever. But the bottom line here is it started in earnest with George Herbert Walker Bush back on September 11th, 1990, where he came out and he said, look, we are going to have a new world order, that famous New World Order speech. And, of course, that has continued. The continuity of agenda has continued from George Herbert Walker Bush forward. Who's behind this? It's the globalists. These people are globalists. Is there any excuse, Joe? Is there any excuse that you can come up with for that statement about killing the dollar?
No excuse, but back to what you said about this plan when it started. This plan was started, look at what the quotes from our founding fathers, like Thomas Jefferson, about the danger of central banks controlling the nation's money supply. We know that this is one of the reasons we gained independence as a nation, because of the unfair taxes, the unfair policies that were in place. And we, as a nation, in 1776, fought and vowed not to be controlled by money or through money by foreign nations. And we gave up that power in 1913 with Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve Act. And the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, and that the Federal Reserve Act and the taking over of our monetary system was only implemented to reach the goals that it's achieving now, to destroy the nation and gain all the resources and real wealth, acquire all the real wealth in, basically for nothing, for pennies on the dollar of what it's really worth. And this is through the deflation of the value of the dollar, and knowing on their side, they know, what to put their money into to make it grow. They know that gold is going up. They're the ones manipulating it. So they can decide to invest all their worthless paper money into gold, let's say, a week before they know gold is going to double in price. And it's through cheating, manipulation, and fraud that they have taken the most productive and richest nation in the history of the world and just destroyed it.
Well, the information I got during the interview today was put this answer in the context of the gun debate, current gun debate, the current situation by them taking our guns away from us. They have to do it. The information I received is that this statement reflects the sentiment of not only this particular Obama regime, but the entirety of the globalists. This is a statement from the Illuminati. This is a statement from the Council of 300 or the Group of 20 or the people at the G8, the G20, whatever it is. These are the people behind the world power system that want to take down this country, that want to institute or implement a new world order, a one single global governance. And I got to tell you, people, it was told to me on the telephone, people are going to die. If you don't get out of the way, if you don't prepare, or if you're not in a position to see what's coming, the people that are and I don't, it kind of hurts me a little bit to use this phrase, the useful idiots out there who don't know they're useful idiots, they're the ones that are going to die. They're falling for a lie. Excuse me. We have been infiltrated. This country has been infiltrated over the last couple of generations by these globalists, by people, by the communists. And this is what it's all about. Think about everything that's going on, the gun control, the draconian measures by the Department of Homeland Security, but all the executive orders, the PDFs, everything that we're seeing has one critical single component to it, and that's the monetary supply. So what we're seeing happening in Cyprus, what we're seeing happening in the Eurozone, this is for all of the marbles. And I know people are saying, "Oh, come on, man. You guys talk about this money thing, and enough is enough." Well, no, this is what it's the context of the gun control situation. They want to disarm us. Why? So we can't fight back. This is what it's all about. And to look at things, or to put things in greater perspective, think about this. China right now is flying under the radar with respect to gold. They're mining gold every day, every hour of every day. They're buying gold via their contacts and via their sources through Hong Kong, via Hong Kong. And it's estimated, in fact, the Zero Hedge article, I believe, that contains the Kyle Bass reference, which we were just talking about, and you just heard, tells me that I think there was an estimated, China has an estimated 4 tons or 4,000 tons of gold in reserve. By the way, Russia's doing the same thing, so don't think that this is just China. This is China and Russia. The true figure would be more like, well, it could be upwards of 6 to 7 times that, but it's more like 9,000 tons of gold China has. They're flying stealth under the radar. They're coming in under the radar. China is going to kill us economically. They are waging a war against us economically, and so is Russia. Russia and China v. the United States. China, and so the things you see too with North Korea, their proxy, it's a proxy state for China. Don't forget, we still have Benghazi, we still have the Syria aspect to consider. China and Russia, they're going to say, look, you want the Middle East? Take the Middle East. We are going to have Indochina and China and the Asian Pacific Rim. That's where we're going with this. To everyone, it looks like the stock market's rising. It's a false rise. It's a paper rise. But it's not worth the paper. And just like everyone says, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. The stock market is not worth the numbers on a piece of paper or on a computer screen. The diversion is the attention away from the Middle East. By the way, the premier of China had met with Putin, what was it, Joe, last week or sometime within the last week or so. They treated them like royalty, like Jacqueline and Jack Kennedy. They will be backing, by the way, the yuan with gold. Excuse me, Iran. Iran is being backed by Russia and China, and of course the two areas that we have of exposure, the banking system, and of course our shipping, the shipping of oil in the Gulf. I mean, what do we have? The two areas of severe exposure that we have right now: the economic system and the money supply and energy supply. And they're going to take down both. And this is something that we need to really keep our eyes and ears on. I have an article from Steve Quayle, actually from V, the Economics Insider, on HomelandSecurityUS.com. HomelandSecurityUS.com, folks, is our home base. I would urge everyone to bookmark that site. I'm in the process of doing a complete report on what my intelligence insider said. That hopefully that will appear on my website in the morning, on our website in the morning, HomelandSecurityUS.com. And we'll also, in talking with Judy after review, she'll publish that on CanadaFreePress.com. So we fully expect that to be on CanadaFreePress.com as well. But the bottom line is this: many, many people are going to die because of this. This is what this is all about. What you're seeing in Cyprus is, as V says, a beta test or a litmus test or a template, actually, for what's going to take place here in this country. So I just want to point that out. So, Joe?
I'll agree that it definitely can happen here, and our were and have been and still are already plans that are written out outlining exactly how they'll do it and giving them the authority to do it. Now, two things. We have breaking news. North Korea enters a state of war with South Korea.
All right.
This is just released here. North Korea has entered a state of war against its southern neighbors, stating that from now on any issues between the two countries, they will be resolved in a wartime manner. This is from this time on, the North-South relations will be entering a state of war, and all issues raised between the North and South will be handled accordingly. A special statement by the country's top military command reads, according to the KCNA state news agency. That's from Russia Today.
All right. Well, once again, I think that North Korea wouldn't be acting this way without the approval or the backing or the urging of China. So they're acting up.
And Russia.
And Russia. That's true. We have to really look at how things are playing out. The end. We're getting close to the end. I asked the gentleman I spoke with earlier today, and the conversation was not a light conversation, nor was it a quick conversation. It was a lengthy conversation, and it was an intense and very sobering conversation. How long? How long before the Black Swan event? How long before the plug is pulled? I don't know. No one knows, but we're watching it unfold in real time right now. And I think that is the important thing to understand. This could happen. The bottom could fall out at any time. It could. Whether it does next week or if it takes a year. But see, behind this screen, behind the screen of the gun grabs, behind the screen of the North Korean menacing of South Korea, and of course the United States, behind what's going on in the Middle East, are the people that shape the events for this global governance. I cannot stress this enough. You know, it's if I sound like a pit bull gnawing on a bone, It's because I am. Because when it comes right down to it, when you start tracing and you start digging and digging and digging and digging and digging with trying to find the truth. What's the truth? Who's behind all of this? Is it Obama or Barry Soetoro, the guy in the White House? Who is behind this? And can we stop it? Well, I think we can, through knowledge, through the disbursement of knowledge. I think we can. We're not going to stop what's coming, but I think we can kind of throw, monkey wrenches into certain plans. And if that's the best we can do while we're in the process of getting out of the way, then let's do it. As I was talking to my source, and Joe and I were talking about this, folks. I don't know how many of you have ever been in an earthquake, but what's worse, the earthquake itself or the aftermath? Isn't it always the aftermath that's worse than the actual earthquake? The earthquake shaking. That is, of course, unless you're underneath a boulder or something, during the earthquake, when bam, it's going to hit you on the head. But it's the aftermath of the earthquake, right?
Well, yeah, that would be the most difficult part to deal with, right. Unless, obviously, you perish in the earthquake, then you have nothing to worry about. But the cleanup, yeah. I mean, right, the earthquake lasting a very short period of time, the effects of the earthquake could be, weeks to months to years to fix. And I just was looking here, Keith Hanson said about 10 minutes. So he'll be joining us.
And folks, Keith Hanson is a friend of the show. He's a great guy. He's a talk show host. And he's got an announcement to make tonight, and then we're going to talk to him about current events, what he sees. Of course, he's a DHS firearms instructor. This guy should know what's going on. We're going to hold his feet to the fire about what he believes is taking place with the DHS.
A DHS firearms instructor or a firearms instructor who trains the DHS sometimes?
Oh, you want to get... Okay. Yeah, you're right. He's a firearms instructor who occasionally trains the DHS.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out for me.
While we're waiting for him, I wanted to get into this article real quick. There was an interview done with an Arkansas Fusion Center director, and this article is titled Fusion Center Director, We Don't Spy on Americans. Just anti-government Americans.
That's all right.
Law enforcement intelligence processing fusion centers have long come under attack for spying on Americans. The Arkansas director wanted to clarify the truth. Centers only spies on some Americans, those who appear to be a threat to the government. In trying to clear up this misconception about the conduct of fusion centers, Arkansas State Fusion Center Director Richard Davis simply confirmed Americans' fears. The center does, in fact, spy on Americans, but only those who are suspected to be anti-government. The misconceptions are that we are conducting spying operations on U.S. citizens, which is, of course, not a fact. That is absolutely not what we do. He told the NWA homepage from KNWA-TV,
right,
after claiming that his office absolutely does not spy on Americans. He proceeded to explain that this does not apply to those who could be interpreted as a threat to national security due to their beliefs through domestic terrorism and certain groups that are anti-government. We want to kind of take a look at that and receive that information. So he's kind of making a distinction, or he really just misspoke, saying we don't spy on Americans. That's a fact. Only Americans who are anti-government, who are not really Americans because they are enemies of the state. You can interpret it that way. Or you can say he misspoke and meant to say we don't spy on law-abiding Americans.
And this is the problem. This is the problem with this and previous, and this is the problem with the government in general. The lies are constant. The fact is they are spying on Americans. They just won't say that we're. Of course, they're spying on Americans. They're spying on every American. But here's the critical aspect. If you are white and you are a Christian, I got to bring race into it because race is part of this. But if you're a white Christian, you are high on the target list of people of being listed as a terrorist. You know this. You hear this all of the time. But the real sad part about this is what we're seeing now is the ghost signal, if you will, by the people in charge. Now we're starting to see veterans being actually molested, raided, if you will, their guns taken away. Next on the list, and this will happen within the next 30 days, based on the information I've gotten, you're going to see the Christians hit and the constitutionalists hit, raided, harassed, and such. We have Keith on?
Yeah.
Or you're pointing. What would you point?
I wanted to add to the point here and finish reading what they say in the article. They talk about how his reasoning is flawed, his argument's flawed. It goes on to say, in order to determine whether somebody is considered to be a threat to the nation or hold these anti-government sentiments, it already has to be conducting some sort of surveillance operations on them to find that information out.
Of course. How do you determine if someone is a potential threat? You've got to have a basis of analysis. I mean, you've got to have some sort of analysis on these people. So you're right. So there's a virtual surveillance on everyone, but sorry, our studio wall was shaking there for a minute. But the focus is going to be on if you are if you're Caucasian, if you are a Christian, if you have strong views on abortion, if you've got strong views on and you've got some abortion news or which is extremely important, folks. And if you have strong views on homosexuality and the rights for homosexuals to marry, if you've got strong views on the economy and on the Federal Reserve, look, you're high on this list. If you have a problem with the TSA, you're high on this list. So, folks, understand what's taking place here. We're seeing the end game. This is the fourth quarter of the game. Look, we're not out trying to. I'm not trying to. I was talking to my intelligence source, and he said, "Doom porn. Don't you ever call this doom porn." And I said, "Well, look, I've seen this referenced. In fact, in the context of our program, I've seen this referenced on other boards." And he says, "Doom porn is not telling people the truth, essentially, or telling people a lie that everything is going to be fine. Doom porn is saying, hey, the stock market's going to go up to 20,000 and things are going to be fine. That's what doom porn is. What you're doing is you're reporting the truth." And I'm very, very animated about this, and I'm concerned about this. I don't think I've ever been. I was pretty shaken up by this phone call, by our conversation today. Even though this information is more than a year and a half old, we're looking at a situation right now where we're seeing the squeeze being put on the very people that we should hold dear, the elderly, the people in the middle class that work for a living, that go to work every day, that bring home the money. These are the people that are going to get hurt the worst, the people that really aren't paying attention. If we can warn one person, folks, if you can, just do me a favor this Easter weekend, when you have the family over and you're sitting at the Easter table, I know how difficult this conversation is, but if you can just share with the people or one person about where we're at here. Just mention Cyprus. Just point to Cyprus, or say, well, look what's going on in Cyprus. You don't think this can happen here? It's going to be 10 times worse here. It's going to be that much worse here. We're not going to stop it. We are not going to stop what's coming. Please understand this. We're not going to stop what's coming. It's too far. It's too late in the game. We can pray. We can prepare. We can do both. We need to do both. And we can also attempt to get the information out to others. That's your obligation, isn't it? As a watchman within your own group of people, within your own family, isn't that what you are supposed to do? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Just do it. This Easter weekend. Just grab a hold of somebody and say, hey, how do you feel about what's going on? You don't have to make a big deal about it, but get them thinking. Because what's going to take place, and let me just say this, what we're seeing is the rush of money. Everyone is flocking to the dollar as the safe haven currency, the world currency. That's intentional. This is why the stock market's going up. But yet, at the same time the stock market's going up, what else is going up? You've got food prices going up. You've got cost of gasoline going up. You've got cost of energy going up. Wages really aren't going up. So everything's upside down and backwards. If you look at it logically, that alone should tell you that there's a problem. So this influx of currency, U.S. dollars to America, is only temporary. Once all of this money comes to America, at that point, then they're going to take and do what they did in Cyprus. And we're going to get caught up in this. 40%, maybe higher, out of your bank account.
Does it matter at this point? If we see...
Yeah, I think you're muted.
Yeah, at this point in the we'll say this late in the game, does it matter though? I mean, night after night, I regurgitate this. The legislation is in place to put every single one of us into civilian camps.
Well,
it is.
But see, we don't have to
take our houses, our property, take our bank accounts, our cars, take us and separate us from our family.
We don't have to be subjugated to this. We don't have
to be, but we're going to be.
We're not going to be. I'll be damned if I'm going to be.
Well, they're going to try. And it's just a matter of, do you have yourself ready to listen to the Holy Spirit to guide you in what you do from that point forward?
Right. But we also...
We need to hedge all of our support, all of our bets with the Holy Spirit, not with any, things on this earth, whether it be guns, food, gold. Those things can help you in that situation.
Sure.
But the Lord is the only one that you can truly put your trust in. And by putting your trust in anything else, you are condemning yourself.
No, it's not a matter of putting our trust into someone else or something else instead of God. It's a matter of taking the most logical and sensible approach to get out of the way of what's coming. It's like being in an earthquake. You wouldn't want to be standing underneath a boulder as the earthquake is, about ready to hit. So, that's just what I'm saying. All right. Now, folks, but again, I just can't stress enough. And watch for, please, bookmark HomelandSecurityUS.com. Watch for the article about this. Also, CanonFreePress.com. Watch for the article about this. And if you're listening to this live, you can catch us on, both of us now on video at Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk. There's a link above that that'll take you directly to the live video high def. Steve, by the way, I don't have your eagle behind me. The reason for that is this was kind of a very quick putting together of where I'm at right now. This is not where I'm going to be for the next broadcast. You'll see it out there, my friend. God bless you for that. Also, I just want to, before we bring Keith Hanson on, let you folks know on Monday, 9 to midnight special show, getting more into the financial aspect of things, Steve Quayle and his Financial Insider V. Unprecedented update. I don't think he's ever done 2 shows like this. What, he was on last week? I think last Friday. When was V on?
He was on last Friday.
Okay, so you're talking about 10 within within 10 days. I don't think that that's ever happened before. And then, so he'll explain more about that. Then on Wednesday, Stan Dale will be on from 8 to 10 at the very least, perhaps 8 to 11, explaining about some Earth situations taking place. And with that, let's bring on our friend, good friend, Mr. Keith Q. Hanson. Q stands for, I don't know. No, Keith Hanson, very good friend of the program. Keith, how you doing, my buddy?
Fantastic. How you doing, Doug?
Very well. Are you on video, or are you just? Oh no, you just have a still image on there. What are you afraid of? Oh, are you shirtless today or what?
Am I sure? No, but actually I can see Joe. He's waggling his eyebrows there. So
you can't see me or what?
I can't see you. No, your Skype thing is just swirling around. So no, you're not visible. So
all right. Well,
I don't have a camera because I have a face for radio. So, and
no, I'll tell you, I've seen you up close in person, and a very dapper man, I must say.
Thank you. But, thank you. I'm blushing. But if I had a camera, you could see that. But
yeah, it's good to have you on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report once again. Folks that don't know Keith Hanson, a great friend of the program, and he used to have a talk show out of Naples, Florida. In fact, the Keith Hanson Show, that I was honored to be on a number of times, and I appreciate that. But Keith, what's been going on? I'm going to just turn you loose, and you tell us what's going on here with you.
Well, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, I know, were tuning in via our either through our archives or also through the live stream through our website, keithontheair.com. I wound up leaving the radio station that was my host station, and in doing so, wound up getting a much larger offer from a much larger radio station. So I talked to you about this, Doug, and I'm using this forum as the first time to publicly announce that the Keith Hanson Show is back now on the Beasley Broadcasting Network. And we're expanding out to a 2-hour show, still doing on Saturdays, but Saturdays from 10 a.m. until noon Eastern Time. And we are on a 100,000-watt powerhouse out of Southwest Florida, 96 K-Rock. And again, we will be streaming, and I'm also really excited to announce that we will also have HD video in studio. So, and the format of the show is going to change a little bit. I will still be delivering the same high-quality commentary that I have up until this point. However, I will be joined in studio by a liberal antagonist. So I am going to have a liberal wingman in the studio.
Alan Combs, by chance, or?
You know what? He failed his interview. So no, I actually have one of the more popular liberals in Southwest Florida, a gentleman who goes by his screen name or his stage name of Smitty. And Smitty he's very well known to the radio audience down here in Southwest Florida. So Smitty is going to be coming on board with me, and together we are going to be dissecting and discussing the hot button social and political topics of the week in scathing fashion. And of course, we will certainly have some very lively interviews. So should be very exciting. But I'm really pleased that we had a much bigger fish that bid on my show, and as a result, we're certainly moving on up.
That's terrific. So starting when? Starting tomorrow?
No, actually, this is great. I spent the past week kind of in this mad, frantic dash to get everything done, only to come to find out we don't actually start until next Saturday. And I just found this out as of 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. So it was actually nice to be able to downshift and breathe for a little bit, because we have been running at a frenetic pace. And just to give you an idea, I mean, it was myself and Sandy, my producer, with the show on WGUF. I now have a team of 5 people on the show. I've got myself, of course. I've got Smitty. I've got an intern from Florida Gulf Coast University who's going to be joining us. I've also got another producer, and I've got a board operator. So, I mean, it's significantly larger than what we were doing at GUF.
100,000 watts. You're going to be heard in Cuba, right? I mean,
on a clear night, yes. On a clear night, yep.
Are you going to be streaming over the internet as well?
We will. Yeah, we'll have the audio streams. We'll have in addition to, we'll also have the HD video stream as well. So people can. We should have hopefully within the first week we'll have the official iTunes podcast download available. So.
Okay.
We'll have
All right.
Audio stream, video stream, and if you ask nicely, I'll even come to your house and sing "Kumbaya" with you. So.
Well, no, I haven't heard you sing. I can only imagine it. We can skip that, but
I actually used to sing opera. Believe it or not.
Really?
I used to sing opera. Yep. Back when I was about knee high to a grasshopper. I used to sing opera, and then unfortunately, of course, man or boy becomes man, and voice changes, and no longer can I do that. But Victoria was actually saying, I think I'm going to get you voice lessons. I want to get you back in the studio and get you singing. I can actually carry a tune.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're lethal with a weapon, I can tell you that. So you can sing and shoot. How's that?
Absolutely. Sing a couple of show tunes and they'll run away. So I don't even need the weapon.
That's well. Yeah. So okay. So Saturday the 6th of April is my understanding, or I'm looking at this right. All right. That's going to be your premiere show from 10 to noon?
Premiere show. So I have invited my good friend from the Arctic North, Doug Hagmann, to come on board and be a part of the inaugural show. But I think we're going to kick it off with, and of course you are definitely welcome to be there. I'd love to have you. But we're going to kick it off, obviously, talking about our two hot button topics right now, which are guns and gay marriage.
All right. So, well, do you have time, because we want to grill you on guns. Well, not on guns, but. We're getting all sorts of information. I mean, it's ridiculous, the numbers that we're seeing now. The mainstream media is starting to pick up interest in the weapons, the DHS taking, being so heavily armed. What's your take, Keith, right now on where we're at with this buildup of weapons and our inability as average Americans to get ammunition? I mean, is this a backdoor form of gun control?
That's a good question, and I've always, I think a lot of your listeners know I do teach as a contractor. I do teach firearms and less lethal and defensive tactics for several government entities. I've never hidden from that, and I'm very open about that. As far as that goes, I'm kind of low man on the totem pole. I'm certainly not privy to the information that's shared with the upper echelon of these agencies. That being said, I've always kind of been quick to defend Department of Homeland Security. The 1.6 billion rounds, it's not actually the acquisition of 1.6 billion rounds. It's more or less the authorization to purchase up to. The numbers that DHS has actually acquired is significantly less. But, listen, I'm going to be the first one to say that something just doesn't seem right, and I really think that Napolitano needs to be held accountable. I think that there should be people should know. I mean, our system of government is predicated upon a concept called checks and balances. One hand knows what the other hand is doing. So to have an entity that is amassing ammunition and amassing weaponry, and to not have a clear understanding of what their mission statement is and what their goals are, I don't find that comforting. And I don't think there's people out there that should find that comforting. I think that they should be held accountable. If this is the transparent government that Barack Obama wants, boy, I'll tell you, it's not transparent at all. We need to know. We have a right to know what's going on. So that way, there's something that's not right, that it can be put in check. But this is par for the course for this administration. So we really shouldn't expect any less from them.
No, I totally agree. And every day, and I've got right now in my inbox 7 since the show began, 7 different emails currently about various urban training exercises, either via the Department of Defense or DHS or a combination thereof. What's going on with this training in the streets of America, in your estimation?
Well, there's a lot of people that are looking at it and saying, the government is going to be coming for the average person. I think it's a more plausible explanation to look at it and say, I think that the government realizes that we are really teetering on the brink of the abyss, if I can speak in proverbial senses. Our economy is about to hit the toilet. There's just so many different things that are going on nationally and globally in both the political circuits and the economic circuits that really create a level of uncertainty. And I think the biggest threat is coming from not so much the law-abiding citizens. The biggest threat, and I think the biggest need for government intervention, when I say government intervention, I'm talking about from a FEMA or a DHS law enforcement standpoint, is going to be people who cannot get the entitlements that they have come to depend upon. I mean, if you see what's happening, look at the Twitter comments that were flying right before Hurricane Sandy. You had segments of the population that were looking forward to the opportunity to loot, to go out and create social chaos, to engage in violence, to engage in criminal behavior. The people who are the low information voters out there, when all of a sudden their welfare checks stop coming and their government phone gets shut off, and suddenly now they can't enjoy the pampered lifestyle that they've come to know at the government teat, now suddenly we're going to go out and we're going to take what's ours. And I think that's the biggest threat right now. So, I mean, in terms of urban scenarios, I had an interesting conversation tonight with, and I apologize, by the way, for being late. I was supposed to be on right around 15:15. I lost my car.
You what?
I lost my car.
You didn't pay your car or what? Or you just couldn't find it?
No. It's my car's paid off, so I couldn't find it. No, down here in Southwest.
How do you do that?
How do you?
How do you? I've lost my car keys. I've never lost my car. Do tell. Do
you remember back? I don't think it was during the original Not Ready for Primetime Players aspect of Saturday Night Live, but in the early '80s, they had Father Guido Sarducci, the comedian. And Father Guido Sarducci had a theory that what you lost on Earth, you would get back in heaven. So all those pens and the car keys and the socks that you've lost, when you go through the pearly gates, you get a basket of all the stuff that you lost on Earth. And so Father Guido Sarducci's theory was, I'm going to lose a Corvette. So that way when I get to the pearly gates, I'm going to be able to cruise around in style. So I, for a period of time, was expecting that I was going to get my Mercedes back when I wound up going to the pearly gates. No, what happened was, down here, of course, if you're a basketball fan, you know that there's this virtually unheard of college called the Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida, that has been thrust into the national spotlight because they beat out, I don't know who they beat out because I'm really not a basketball fan, but they beat out some other team. And so now they're in the Sweet 16. All right. And so now Fort Myers was thrust into the national spotlight, and this whole area is going crazy over this FGCU men's basketball team, and they're playing tonight at 9:57. So I made the mistake of stopping into a good friend of mine and one of our show sponsors, Elevation Burger, had a buddy of mine. I said, hey, let's go grab a bite to eat, not even thinking that, you can't move in this area right now because everybody's heading out to sports bars and restaurants, and they're all in this basketball fever. So we go to this place called the Gulf Coast Town Center, which is a big shopping complex and dining complex, and I go to park my car, and I realize that my buddy who's following me is not there. So I kind of park my car and jump out of the car so I could try to find him, and I wasn't paying attention to where I parked my car. So here I am wandering through the parking lot aimlessly, trying to find my car, pressing the button so hopefully I can find the lights. And then I had this brilliant idea because I'm like, I look like an idiot. So I called a friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a while, and he said, what's up? And I said, I just need to talk to you for a minute because I lost my car, and I figure it'll look a lot more sensible if I'm walking through the parking lot on the phone. People will think, well, he's just having a conversation and therefore is aimlessly wandering, as opposed to just wandering around with this glazed look on my face like, where is my car? So that's why I was 15 minutes late. I apologize. I figured you'd enjoy that story.
So, I love it, but did you find your car? I mean, obviously you did find your car, right?
And you know what? It was not where I thought I left it. of all things. Which I guess that's kind of the point when you lose something. It's not where you thought it was going to be. So no, it was much further away from where I had originally thought I had parked it. So, but I did find it, and I was able to get in here and get logged in, and so everything was good.
Well, Keith, I got to say that's a lot better than getting in the wrong car, as I've seen my father do on several occasions.
He gets into the wrong car.
No, hold on a second. All right, just because this is kind of a frantic Friday and a free-for-all Friday, I should say. Keith, you got to understand. All right, I've been through medical problems. When you're going through the initial stages of diabetes, for example, and you're taking medication, things kind of get a little bit iffy. All right, so give me a little room there. But that said, go ahead and embarrass me, Joe. Tell them what I did.
On a few occasions.
One specifically. You're right.
We were working and we stopped at a gas station, and my father ran into the gas station, and I was driving, and he came back out, and he got into the car. I think it was next to our car, and it was the wrong car. Not only that, there was a police officer right next to the other car. Yeah, and it reminds me of the time I was grocery shopping and an old lady got in the passenger seat of my car when I was attempting to leave, who I didn't know.
That's depending on where you are, that could get you in a lot of. You could get shot for that, especially down here.
Well, yeah, down there. But I got to tell you too, that was one time. Another time I got into the passenger seat of a car, and I think you might have been there, Joe. I think you might have been. But a woman was driving. A woman was in the driver's seat. And at that was a little hard to explain at that moment, except for whoops, I'm sorry, wrong car. But we so yeah, who am I to talk? But it just kind of funny stuff on a Friday. But a little levity never hurts anyone. But wow, so yeah. But where are we at?
It's funny because as you know, the majority of what I do is firearms training, and I have a number of programs. Especially right now, we've been very busy with active shooter response programs for law enforcement, both on a state, county, and local level. And I have a tremendous number of agencies right now that have actually called to cancel because of lack of available ammunition and training materials. Training budgets are drying up. Ammunition is virtually nowhere to be found. So this is definitely affecting everybody. In fact, I know a couple of times this past week, Drudge has had headlines up stating that local, state, county, municipal law enforcement agencies are bartering and they're begging for ammunition. They can't get it. And this, unfortunately, right now is, I think, a self-perpetuating problem. I think the biggest issue right now is people who are just buying it up in mass. People who really have no. I'm going to offend a couple of people, but I'm not going to hold back. There's a lot of people out there who are buying ammunition because they don't, not because they need it, but because they think they need it. If you're going to bug out, if the poop hits the air circulator and you've got to bug out, you're not going to be carrying 10,000 rounds of ammunition with you. And the people that I see that are buying case upon case upon case of rifle ammunition, these are people that have no knowledge of even how to run that gun. Yes, you know how to put 30 rounds into a magazine. You know how to put the magazine into your gun. You know how to go to the range and press the trigger as fast as you can. That doesn't make you an operator with that weapon system. There's a lot of people out there that just don't know how to use guns, but they have to have it because, number one, it looks really cool when they're posing with their AR-15 spread atop 10,000 rounds of rifle ammo on their Facebook page, and then you've got the other idiots that are preparing for the zombie apocalypse. What's happening is as soon as the ammunition gets produced and it goes on the shelf, people are snatching it up because they think they can't get it anymore. So as fast as the stuff is hitting the shelf, it's being consumed, and then you also have these other idiots that are out there purely for profiteering purposes. I'm going to go to Walmart, and I'm going to buy this ammo at $10 a box, and I'm going to sell it for $30 a box because there's some schmuck who's stupid enough to pay for it.
I've seen that happen, and our gun stores here they'll limit the sale of ammunition to 2 boxes, we'll say, whatever it might be. And the gun stores up here up north are pretty good about not gouging people. So if a box of ammunition was $20, we'll say, before it's inavailable, or before it became so hard to get, it's still $20. But they're saying, hey, just buy 2 boxes. And they know who we all are. Pretty much everyone knows everyone, so it's not really a gouging situation. But I know what you're talking about, and I've talked to people who have said, who bragged, and they said, oh yeah, I've got all this ammunition. I'm a rich guy. I could sell all this for, I bought it for 20. I could sell it for 40. And so, but do you think that is that even the biggest? I mean, that's not really a big problem, is it?
No, it's definitely a big problem because right now you got these factories that are running full tilt boogie. They're running full shifts, and in talking with a lot of C-level management for the manufacturers, it's all the same thing. We're running full shifts, and of course, the next logical question will be, well, why don't you expand your operation? Why don't you add on to your building, add another 50,000 square feet? And it's like, well, yeah, how long does it take to build that? How long does it take to secure, the materials that we need to purchase? You have all the manufacturing equipment, and then what happens when, suddenly this corrects? Now we're
Do
starting.
you think it'll correct though? Do you think it'll correct?
I hope so. I hope so because, I'm tired of running into, fellow law enforcement trainers and law enforcement officers in places like Walmart who are all looking for the same ammo.
Yeah.
It's literally gotten to the point where, we are going to the same places that private citizens are going to find ammo. We can't find it. I was up at a training in Central Florida a couple of weeks ago, and they had reps from Hornady ammunition for specifically the law enforcement brands, and they're coming out and they're explaining these new the Hornady critical duty and the TAP, the tactical application police rounds, and how these are the greatest things since sliced bread. And everybody's like, yeah, it's a great ammunition, but what's the availability? Well, we guarantee delivery within 90 days to an agency. 90 days? How does that help me with the guys who are having patrol rifles pulled out of their cruisers because they can't qualify? Because the agencies that they work for are saying, when you show up for qualification, make sure that you show up with enough ammunition to get you through.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this question because I've gotten 2 different answers from actually from 3 different people. With DHS orders, we'll say the 1.6 billion rounds over 5 years. It's my understanding. This is actually one of the answers from 2 different people, or from 2 people I received. Same answer from 2 people, different answer from the other person. If a company orders 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, or if DHS orders 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition in a contract situation, if they order from Smith Contracting Company, the Smith Contracting Company or Smith Ammunition Company must make that much ammunition or have that much ammunition available to the federal authorities or federal agency before they can sell to anyone else. Is that true?
That's a good question, Doug. I don't honestly know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't honestly know the answer to that. One of the establishments that I do get some of my ammunition for, I know they're behind right now because they're filling, this is actually kind of scary, they're filling a 6 billion round order for the Saudi government.
Really?
Yeah, 6 billion rounds for the Saudi government. So, I don't know. I mean, who gets first crack? I don't know.
Holy.
Wow. Again, in talking with a lot of the C-level management from various manufacturers, the general consensus is stuff that's being manufactured today is stuff that was ordered or that is being manufactured to fulfill orders that were received anywhere between 6 to 9 months ago. So at current production levels, they're still 6 to 9 months behind schedule in filling these orders. So if that is indeed correct, all things being equal, you're looking at a minimum of 6 to 9 months before inventory levels could even get back to where they need to be. but we're also not taking into consideration this frenetic purchasing pace that people are at right now.
Understood.
You know,
if you can hold that thought just for a second, can you stick with us for another segment here?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, fine, because we're up against the top of the hour break. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host in studio, Joe Hagmann. Together we are actually live in high-def video. If you go to Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk, and click on the link above our picture, or click on the link above the Justin TV. You can see us both live in studio. If you want to watch and see what we look like and see what we're doing and catch us unawares, of course, do so. Our very special guest this hour is Mr. Keith Hanson. I've got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've known people in law enforcement and, connected to law enforcement my entire adult life, being an investigator. Keith Hanson is the real deal. He's a good guy. He's an oath keeper. He's the first guy I would turn to, if I had a problem with certain situations as far as guns are concerned, or weapons and things. He's a ultimate professional, and he's also one great talk show host. And he has announced on this program that starting April 6th, that's next Saturday, a week from tomorrow, he's going to be live 10 to noon in Florida on a 100,000-watt radio station. The Keith Hanson Show lives. I will say this: I'm very proud that he chose this venue to announce this on. They're going to be streaming audio and video together, and that starts again April 6th, 2013. Keith, welcome back, and tell people you've got a Facebook presence. That's the Keith Hanson Show, I believe, on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.com/Keith Hanson Show. And also the website is keithontheair.com. This was a great experience. And again, not to knock the station that gave me my start. It was a smaller station, 7,000 watts. But I know you had the pleasure of talking with Sandy, producer, when you had come on. Sandy was really instrumental in helping me to develop as a broadcaster, and I really had a good opportunity to cut my teeth. So when I was actively courted by Beasley Broadcasting, it was certainly a validation of what I had spent the previous year doing. Developed a very, very large core of listeners from all over the world. And I know this a lot of people, actually, when I went off the air, I had a lot of people who I know were introduced to me through you and your show, who had sent me emails saying, "Hey, hadn't heard from you in a while. You're not broadcasting. What's up? What's going on?" I said, some things are changing here, and just stay positive and hang tight, and we'll be back. So I'm excited to be able to continue in a much larger fashion. And like the show's going to change a little bit. It's not going to be the same that you've come to know. Again, we're expanding out to 2 hours now, which is nice. I do have a liberal co-host, or he's not really a co-host, but he's a liberal wingman. And Smitty and I get along. He's a good guy, but when he and I start talking politics, it usually takes about 30 to 45 seconds, and the sparks start flying. And that's the kind of thing. It's that point counterpoint that I think is really important. And the foundation of my show has always been, we have to keep talking. We have to keep that dialogue open. Once we stop communicating, once we shut down and stop talking about the issues, that's when we really have a problem. But if we can continue to engage in constructive, creative dialogue, there's still some hope. And
are you allowed to talk about anything you want? Has there been any restrictions placed on the
No, in
content?
fact, the K-Rock, their tagline is "Talk That Rocks," and it is a rock and roll station turned talk radio. So I can get away with far more on the station in terms of what I could say. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about George Carlin's 7 Forbidden Words, but that's pretty much about all.
Right.
So if I really want to kind of say what's on my mind, I got into trouble on the previous station because I told people who were on welfare they needed to get off their lazy asses and go out and stake their own claim. And my God, you would have thought that I used every expletive in the book. That really upset some people in the station management. If it upsets listeners, that's kind of a good thing, because that's good, compelling radio. I don't want to listen to a show where I'm always just agreeing with the host. Every once in a while, I want to disagree with the host, and I may want to call that person up and tell them exactly what I think of them. That's good radio.
Yeah, I agree. No, I totally agree. Now, when you took the government people to task, or those people who live off the government dole, where did the ire come from? Upper management because of the blowback, or
no? There was no blowback. There was not a single piece of blowback, because I went into the office and I said, substantiate this. If you have a problem with this is exactly what I told the station manager. If you have a problem with this, then show me either, number one, the FCC complaint, or number two, show me the emails from listeners that had a problem with this.
And
we don't really have it. It's just not what I think. Great. When you start paying my salary, then I will customize a show that you like. But until then, get the you-know-what out of my face.
Wow.
Because I'm not here to write a show that you like. I'm here to develop content that my listeners want to hear, that my listeners need to hear.
Okay.
And that people who may not necessarily be listeners need to hear. This is a message that people need to hear. And this is my forum, and this is my time. And if you want your own radio show, then go get your own radio show. Come out of the office, get into the studio, and start talking. But until then, don't try to dictate to me what my content is. If it's controversial, but you got to remember, too, I was also broadcasting in Naples. And Naples is a very hoity-toity area. We don't feed the dog without wearing our white gloves. So God forbid, the Bentley driving crowd of Naples gets a little bit offended because somebody used the word ass. Oh, merciful heavens, I'm sorry that I offended you with such foul truck driver language. Again, we're not talking about George Carlin's 7 Forbidden Words here. So the nice thing is that, I can be more of who I am on K-Rock. They're really encouraging me to get creative with the show. And to even push some boundaries, to push some envelopes, because controversy makes for good radio, and controversy makes for good discussion. And that's ultimately why we're here. We want conversations. We want people to be challenged in their way of thinking. We want people to look at something, going into something with a preconceived notion, and walking away going, you know what? My perspective was changed because of an intriguing, intelligent dialogue that I either had or was exposed to on this show.
That's right.
Regardless of the content, that is one thing my dad points out a lot, is the lacking ability of people to even debate without, problems, arguments, shouting, walking out the room. It seems that it is growing more. People are growing more into their own views instead of being open-minded and being willing to listen to the other side. They are just have dug their feet into the ground, and they're not moving an inch no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what, Keith? I was a guest on the Tom Barley show yesterday out of Buffalo, New York. It's a pretty big market. Excuse me. And during the show, we had a couple of callers. I waited an hour or more just to say things that never made it to the air. Okay. Mm-hmm. They disagreed with what I had to say, with what Tom was talking about, but the fact of the matter was they could not articulate their objectives without using a series of expletives and descriptive comments. Mm-hmm. So but what we're seeing is, I think, this erosion of the English language. I mean, people don't know how to debate. People don't know how to communicate anymore. Even, if I disagree with you on the topic, or you disagree with me, it seems like, and you mentioned it, Joe, it just kind of turns into either a shouting match or one of expletives, but there's no intellectual discussion anymore. But this is what you'll be offering.
No, and that's predicated on the fact that I think that a lot of people, they just lack, and it's not through any fault of their own. I mean, you and I, we can intelligently support our viewpoints based upon some opinion and mostly fact.
Right.
But what do we do? And I got to be honest with you. I mean, I'm kind of out of the. I've taken the past couple of weeks as kind of a political hiatus. I'm a little bit behind the eight ball here in terms of what's been going on. I've just, for the past couple of weeks, I've kind of shut down and really tried to, the depth of what I'm going into in terms of news is basically just a cursory. I'll go on Drudge. I'll go on my usual sources. And I'll scan it over. But I haven't really been studying the news the way that I would when I'm broadcasting. But I mean, and of course, going back on the air now, I'm spending more time reading and more time getting caught up on everything. So that way, I have an intelligent foundation from which to express my opinions. And again, I'm not a reporter. I'm a commentator. That's my job. My job is to offer my commentary on what's going on in the world. I had somebody say to me, "Oh, you're a terrible." Of course, they were a liberal. "Oh, you're a terrible reporter." I said, "Well, that shows you how much you know, because I'm not a reporter. My job is not to be a reporter. My job is to offer commentary on what is going on and what I think is right and what I think is wrong. And like everybody, I'm entitled to my opinion. But you and I, we do this professionally. So for us, we're used to getting into discussions. We're used to getting challenged. We're used to having to think on the fly and come up with answers and come up with responses that are intelligent. But you have to remember that the vast majority of people out there, they're getting their opinions from top of the hour, 15 and 30-second sound bites from NBC, CBS, NBC, any of the majors, or the news that they're driving home, and they don't have all the information that they need to accurately or adequately formulate an opinion that's going to stand up in a court, in a debate court, for lack of a better term. And that necessity to go to profanity comes out of frustration because they can't express themselves.
That's a good point.
What you and I do, and Joe, what you do, we give a voice, and we arm our listeners with a way of approaching an argument that makes sense, that's rooted in fact, that's rooted in supportable views, and we give them information. The greatest compliment that I ever had from a listener was somebody who emailed me and said, "I appreciate your show because I always felt that I would go into an argument with a friend or a family member about politics at a disadvantage. And when I listen to you, you put it in such a way that it makes sense to me, and it helps me to build my own opinion, and I feel like I've become a better debater now as a result of having listened to your show and listening to you every week." And that was like one of the greatest compliments that I think anybody could have possibly given me, because that's my goal. When I get behind that microphone, that's my goal.
Okay. Well, I mean, as is ours as well, too. Obviously, we attempt to, we attempt to emulate you, as a matter of fact. I mean, to a large extent. But
and continuing on your point, Mr. Hanson, what this week?
If you call me that again, I'm going to get on a plane and come up there and smack you. I'm
all right.
39 years old. I'm not a Mr. Hanson. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll sell the tickets for that one. But go ahead.
In the last week, 2 weeks today, what in the news is most troubling to you that you see happening, either domestic or international?
No, we understand you've been on this hiatus, this self-imposed hiatus, but look, it hasn't changed much. I mean, the theme or the themes that are taking place haven't changed that much. But knowing you, I could almost guess the answer. But you go ahead and what is most troubling to you?
I don't know if it's so much troubling. I'm kind of amused by Kim Jong-un. I think this is kind of fascinating. I wish somebody would just go over and squash him like the little cockroach that he is. I think it's kind of interesting that Hagel is saying now that we have to take North Korea as a threat. I think somebody just needs to go over there and make an example out of him. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, obviously, North Korea is a proxy of China, and that's kind of disconcerting. But that said, I understand that the impotence of North Korea as a power. Yeah, I get that. What were you going to say, Joe?
No, I was going to say I shared Keith's viewpoint for a long time, and I still am wondering, if that's not the case. But recently, my dad and other people, we've been talking about proxy countries, and we know North Korea is used by nations such as Russia and China. And with the capabilities China has, I don't doubt their ability, or I can see a situation arise where they could do something or launch an attack that would, reach the U.S., or it wouldn't even have to reach the continental United States. It could be a military base in Guam or South Korea or, Hawaii. But, yeah, that is troubling, the rhetoric that is coming out of North Korea, and it is concerning. But if those are just empty threats, what is it that we need to be focusing on would be my question. But,
yeah,
well, I hope there are empty threats, obviously. We don't want to see another war.
No, not at all. Aside from North Korea. Well, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just kind of commenting. I like I said, I feel like I'm at a deficit here, Doug. I really do, because I really haven't been paying that much attention. I've really been spending the past couple of weeks just focusing on trying to make sure that, believe it or not, I've got enough ammunition to make it through July and August for training programs. That's become almost a full-time job.
Wow, yeah. Is there anywhere, by the way, that I mean, is there any place to get ammunition at this point? Obviously, you would. I mean, I'm at a loss. I don't even know what question to ask at this point about ammunition, other than the fact that I can't find any. I can't find 9mm. I can't find anything for an AR. I can't find anything. I mean,
we read through this some of the objectives of the planning and some of the PDFs in the Strategic National Stockpile for the medicine. They have the same thing for the weaponry and ammunition, to buy up the supplies of ammunition to create shortages.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Do I think that they're doing that specifically to create shortages? One of the interesting things that I heard actually just yesterday was that there are ammunition manufacturers that have plenty of bullets, have plenty of primers, but it's the rolled brass that they're not able to get a hold of. It's actually the casings themselves that are becoming the hardest thing to find. But I know a lot of distributors that they're importing product from Czech Republic. They're importing product from Russia, Tula Ammo, and there's a couple of other ammunition brands that come in out of Russia. The prices really aren't changing all that much. But you're looking at, I was talking to a department down in southwestern Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. Their budget's been cut by 50%, but ammunition has also doubled in price. So now they are at, from an ammunition standpoint, at least 25% of what they were at for fiscal 2012.
Mm. Well, most ammunition manufacturers do not manufacture the brass. I mean, they get supplies into the brass and the primer and the other components.
They're getting stuff from other sources.
I got it. All right. What do you think? Before we close out here, what do you think about the small arms trade treaty? Any thoughts on that?
I don't think it's going to get any support. I don't think that. First of all, I don't think that this assault weapons ban. Dianne Feinstein backed down with her assault weapons ban. You're just not going to see it. They don't have the support for it. And I think the politicians are smart enough to realize that. And even Clinton said to Obama, "Listen, there's some things you can mess with, but watch out on this gun thing." They're just not going to get the support for it. And I think that it would be political suicide for any any of the 535 members of the House or the Senate to actually support this thing, because, I mean, unless you're coming from really deep liberal territory, California, maybe Massachusetts, maybe New York, I just don't see the support for it. So
what about Obama? What about Obama?
It's the executive order that I'm concerned with.
There you go. Because I've gotten tons of email from people saying, the Senate's not going to pass or is not going to ratify the small arms trade treaty. There won't be any ratification. But we all know how that goes. We all know that you can, the executive orders, the backdoor amnesty, or the backdoor agreements, but just being a signatory under the treaty, it's my understanding, and I'm not sure what your understanding is, but just by being a signatory, we have to adhere to or adopt a certain behavior or a certain set of protocols, even though it's not ratified. So I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, and equating the common sense or any type of intelligence with political elected officials these days doesn't go a long way in my book. I don't think these people care, or even it could be they view the public disconnect as so great that it doesn't even matter what their actions are. As we've seen, I mean, look at how many voted for the NDAA. That's still sitting in their position of power.
Exactly. Well, I've said this before, when we've talked about gun control. I mean, that's the one thing. It's not about guns. It's about power. It's about bankrupting. It's about bringing Cloward and Piven into fruition. Let's call a spade here. There's nothing more that liberal progressives, that the statists would like more than to see the American people disarmed. Here's the scary thing, Doug. Over 150 million firearms have been purchased and absorbed into society since Sandy Hook. Over 100, I think the number is like 157 or 157.5 million firearms have been purchased and absorbed into society since Sandy Hook in 4 months' time. There is no way in God's green earth you are ever going to eliminate firearms for society. And, here's the other scary thing. Okay, you're talking about people paying $1 a round right now for .223 ammunition. You're talking about going to a gun shop and, paying 4 or 5 times what an AR-15 is worth on a good day. This is in a panic market. What would happen if there was actually a black market?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and
what would happen if there was a black market? And if you've got an AR-15 that you spend $800 for, and now all of a sudden in a black market somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you know what, man? Hey, nobody's looking. Give me $10 grand. Give me $10 grand, and you know what? Or I'll give you $10 grand and give me the gun." Do you think you're not going to do that? Of course you are. Anybody in their right mind is going to do that.
Wow.
If gun control is going to come, it's going to wind up coming through. It's going to wind up coming through an executive order. That's what's going to happen. And then, of course, the question comes to, are the sheriffs, are the sheriffs going to be willing to stand up and to say no? Now, what you've seen is across the country, there's been this movement for, a Second Amendment Preservation Act. We had a couple of them. We fought here in Collier County and also in Lee County. In Southwest Florida here, just to basically have our elected officials in this area. I went down to Collier County to the Board of County Commission, and I stood up, and it wasn't a prepared speech. I did it off the cuff, but basically I said, there were 5 people that were there who were from the anti-gun side. And I said I find it, and of course all 5 of them had the same argument that this isn't an issue that should be taken up in county government. So I got up and I said, listen, anybody who is stupid enough to stand before you and suggest that this is not a county issue clearly slept through 8th grade civics. You don't understand how a federalist system is designed to work. Okay, it is absolutely a local issue, because the Board of Selectmen or the town councilors or the town managers, they have to put forth a mandate. And then the sheriffs have to recognize that and put forth a mandate. And then the states have to stand up and assert their state sovereignty and say, no, if you ask us, or if you try to coerce or force us to do anything, we're not going to follow it. We're not going to pay attention to this. So, it's interesting what happened, and I had this guy on my show, and I can't remember for his life of me. I can't remember the name. But he was a sheriff. There's 3 counties in the state of Delaware. He is a sheriff in one of those counties in the state of Delaware. And Beau Biden, interestingly enough, Joe Biden's son, it was instrumental in getting this passed. They have stripped all county sheriffs, all being 3 of them, stripped the county sheriffs in the state of Florida of all arrest power, or Delaware, I'm sorry, of all arrest powers. So the sheriffs in Delaware have no arrest powers anymore. Now it is fair custody, control of inmates, and civil process, civil service. That's it.
Is that even constitutional? I mean, can they do that?
Well, how many things aren't constitutional? See, this is where the world is upside down, Doug. The liberals will argue to the death that something that's not in the Constitution. Oh, right to education. Oh, you have a constitutional right to education. You have a constitutional right to health care. You have a constitutional right to abortion. But yet, when there's something that is actually codified by the Constitution, suddenly now it's open for debate and it's open for discussion. And, well, we have to sit down and, we have to have a seance to find out exactly what the Founding Fathers meant. So if it's in the Constitution, it's there to be challenged. But if it's not in the Constitution, by just informational diffusion, it winds up there. And it's a part of the Constitution. And our Founding Fathers meant that, people should be able to go out and have irresponsible sex and then have abortions because, damn it, it's a constitutional right.
Keith, they're not only taking arrest powers away from sheriffs, they're now trying to make laws that would fire sheriffs for defying gun control measures. I don't know. You said you haven't been in the news.
It's kind of hard to fire an elected official. All right, that's one of the reasons why the sheriffs are I think are feared by these statists, because they are elected by, of, and for the people. Who's going to fire them?
They say that the first attempt is from Texas legislation, and legislation stating that they will fire any state elected or appointed law enforcement official who does not obey federal orders.
Yeah, and you make a good point, Keith. How in the heck do you fire someone like an elected official? I mean, how would you do that? Would you impeach them? You can't.
I mean, unless there's some type of criminal wrongdoing. I mean, their goal, and have you had Sheriff Richard Mack on your show?
No, we're going to have him on here possibly next week, if not next week.
We had him on about a year ago, and we haven't had him back since.
Yeah, we're going to have him back on, though. Why? What's up? I mean, Sheriff Mack obviously is on the tip of the spear as far as sheriffs are concerned, and sheriff's rights or sheriff's duties. But anything of note with Sheriff Mack?
No, just in terms of his Constitutional Peace Officers Association, and trying to spread the word among sheriffs that you're first and foremost right. And of course, this is what the concept of the Oath Keepers is predicated on. Who once again, by the way, Oath Keepers has made the list. Southern Poverty Law Center. Good old Mark Poddock once again has made us a hate group. So that's fantastic. But it's the understanding that the sheriff first and foremost has a duty to uphold their oath. They took an oath to protect and preserve the Constitution of the United States, and they have a duty to obey that order. They have a duty to obey that oath. And they have a duty to protect their constituents from anything that is unconstitutional. So, and again, I mean, listen, Obama can pass as many executive orders as he wants to. It doesn't mean that it's lawful. It doesn't mean that it's constitutional. Yet, unfortunately, we have an awful lot of people here that they do what they want to do with impunity, or at least with seeming impunity.
Right.
So, I think this further emboldens these people to think, hey, I can do whatever I want to. But, and again, I mean, when you look at Obama, listen, Obama is not by of and for the people. Obama was selected because of his superior intellect. He is so much better of a person than anybody else because, he's been told all of his life he's wonderful, he's amazing, he's this, he's that. Hell, Nancy Pelosi came out and said that, Obama is just such an intellectual giant. The reason why we don't understand him is because, well, we're just so much lower than he is. We just don't have the ability to understand and comprehend what goes through the mind of somebody who is just so omnipotent and omnipresent. And, they elevate this guy to a god status, and it's nauseating.
Got that right.
But the point being is that this guy doesn't have anybody who, there's nobody around who's saying no, you can't do this. So, it's he's going to do what he's going to do, and ultimately we have to, number one, we've had this conversation before. What do we do? Well, you prepare. You prepare. You make sure that you have supplies for your family. Make sure that your family is taken care of. And, just understand that there's a very significant likelihood of there being a pretty nasty storm. And you asked me before, what's the reason for arming? I think the reason that Department of Homeland Security and FEMA is arming up the way that they are is because, you know what, bad things are coming. You ever read the book, The Coming Insurrection? Amazing book. Very, very telling. Very telling. And I think that those days are coming here in the States, but I don't think it's going to be law-abiding citizens that are going to be going crazy. I think it's going to be the low-information voter who is dependent on the government for the handout, and when those handouts stop, that's when chaos is going to ensue, because they can't get what was promised to them.
So your take on this is when the EBT cards stop working, as opposed to when everything else. Okay, all right, and I understand that.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to get me and mine, and that's it. And because there's only one person in the world, I was having a conversation with somebody today, actually over dinner when I lost my car, about this. We were talking about the militarization of police. Now, he worked as a deputy sheriff in Mississippi a number of years ago, and the conversation turned to, well, why is law enforcement so militarized? Well, law enforcement's militarized, I think, primarily because. Not because, I know based upon, what the SOPs are for a lot of these agencies, is because the caliber of, how do I want to put this, client that law enforcement is dealing with has changed.
Right.
There's no respect for law enforcement. There's no respect. You look at these people that are out there, they have no respect for their own life. They have no respect for authority. They have no respect for their own life. It's a situation where, listen, I'm a gangbanger, okay? So if I'm a gangbanger, my expectation is that I'm going to be dead or in jail by the time I'm 21. If I'm 23 years old, every day that I wake up, that's a bonus day. So they're not afraid of it. They're not afraid to go out and challenge. They're not afraid to go up and stand up. Number one, because they're too stupid, but number two, because they have no respect. They have no instinct of self-preservation.
Okay. And that makes sense.
And the other thing, too, is, we teach this with private citizens when we're teaching either defensive classes or personal safety classes. The concept of law enforcement militarizing is to overwhelm. Why do you send in a SWAT team? Because you're expecting a fight? No. You expect that the person is going to acquiesce and surrender once they realize the overwhelming show of force that they're facing. And it's true with criminals. Criminals don't want to fight you. Criminals want to overwhelm you. That's why they pick the weakest link, and that's why they usually surprise you, and that's why they interview their victims before they attack. And it's the same thing with law enforcement. We send in a SWAT team because we want to overwhelm. We don't want to fight. So when suddenly now they get a couple of flashbangs that get kicked through the window, and next thing you know, there's 7 heavily armed people coming through the front door in formation, suddenly now we just roll over and acquiesce, and that's what it is. It's overwhelming. It's called situational dominance. And the goal is to establish situational dominance. He who establishes situational dominance wins the encounter. So the idea of sending in a SWAT team is to overwhelm completely and utterly, to establish that situational dominance.
Right.
But a lot of other people look at that and say, a lot of people who don't understand it will look at it and say, well, you know what, maybe that's the wrong approach. Well, you're also understanding too, though, that you're also dealing with a segment of society that is not afraid to use force. I'm just reading in your chat room here. Wave 1 says swat the dairy farmers, major threat, Keith. Well, again, it's the dairy farmers. The dairy farmers, God bless them. Farmers are as American as apple pie and baseball, and they're the kind of people, again, who may just have a firearm. So again, we're going to send the SWAT team in there, and I'm not saying it's right to anybody who's thinking in there. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that the goal of it is to establish overwhelming.
No, and folks in the chat room, don't read more into what Keith is saying than what he's saying, okay? Because we've had this conversation publicly and privately, and we understand this. I mean, that is the role of the SWAT team. That's the objective of the SWAT team. I understand that. Now, talking with some people in the chat room, and even looking at some of the situations taking place today now, are we not, however, Keith, seeing this massive security apparatus build up since 9/11 being turned against us, the law-abiding citizens? I mean, you've got to admit, without really having to invoke a lot of hyperbole here, you've got to admit that we're seeing this situation turn on when we as constitutionalists, as white Christians, are labeled as terrorists. I mean, look, we could be facing a SWAT team situation if they think we are a danger to their political agenda. I mean, would you agree with that?
I don't think. First of all,
you can disagree with me.
Think that. No, I'm just trying to think of I'm kind of getting distracted because I'm reading things that are going on in the chat room as well too. So I probably
that's why I
should probably stop reading that and just focus on the. No, and this is one of the reasons why the American citizens need to have the government needs to be afraid of us. That's it. The government needs to be afraid of us. I don't want to be afraid of my government. I want my government to be afraid of me because the power rests within the people. And again, when you understand the concepts of situational dominance, you understand why now SWAT teams are being called in. Now you understand why DHS and all these other governmental agencies are, because when you see these things rolling down your streets, what are you going to do? You're going to fight them? No. They're establishing situational dominance. That's the goal. Okay, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, this is the philosophy behind what's going on.
Shock and awe.
So, shock and awe, But again, the status, these people that consider themselves, are leaders. When I went in front of Collier County to talk about the Collier County's adopting the Second Amendment Preservation Act, people were going up there and they were referring to these, we implore you as our leaders. I stood up and I looked the chairwoman, Georgia Hiller of the Collier County Commission, right in the eye, and I said, make no mistake about it, you are not my leader. Nobody in this room is my leader. You are people that I elected, some of you at least I voted for. You are my representatives. I have chosen you because I determined you to be the best steward of what is best for me, to represent me. So your goal is to listen to what the people say and to implement it, not to take the power that you believe the people have given you and now run with it for your own self-serving interests. So make no mistake about it. You're not my leader. You're my representative. And I'm not up here to implore you to vote for this. I'm up here and I'm saying, do your job. My expectation is that you're going to follow your oath and honor your oath and do what you're supposed to do. And I followed up by saying, listen, you either do your job or come in November, we're going to do ours. And that's it.
Any animus by the in return for that assertion or for the statement?
No, I mean standing ovation, and that's
all right. But look, we're getting reports of all this movements. These DHS movements, and again, we can't authenticate all of these reports, but obviously they're getting ready for something here. DHS, the federal agencies together, You know what, let me back up and ask you something. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this. Maybe we have. If we have, forgive me for asking this again.
No, please.
Remember when Obama was talking about the civilian security force or civilian, what was it, Joe? Civilian security force, right?
Civilian security force, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the civilian corps, yeah.
Yeah. What's your understanding of that? Or do you have any inside knowledge based on your contacts? I mean, what is that? Is that the...
That's a scary proposition is what that is.
Well,
yeah. You know, and I'll tell you, I've told you and I've told your listeners in the past that my personal line in the sand, I would never, ever, 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 ever train a TSA agent in the use of any type of weapon system. I would never train a TSA agent with firearms. I would never train a TSA agent with. I would even. Did you hear about the Yahoo in I think it was LaGuardia? Guy found a canister of pepper spray. TSA agent found a canister of pepper spray at the gate and was trying to determine whether or not it was real, and sent himself and 5 of his fellow TSA agents to the hospital.
Yeah.
This just happened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the level of absolute ineptitude and buffoonery of these people. Could you imagine these people with the ability to deprive a private citizen of their constitutional rights? Could you imagine these people, these idiots, these pedophiles, these high school dropouts, and these felons with firearms?
Okay, but two separate questions here. Are they not depriving us of our constitutional rights as we speak without the use of firearms?
Well, we go into it voluntarily.
No, that's
true. I mean, that's the argument. You know, I mean, would I submit to just a random? I mean, TSA. You know, if I walk into a movie theater and there's a TSA agent there searching bags, you touch me and I'm going to treat you as if that's assault and battery. I will put you on the ground. You have no arrest powers. You have no power of authority. You are nothing more than a security guard on the federal payroll. That's all you are. You're not a police officer. You're not a peace officer. You're not a sworn person. You have no ability to detain or arrest or in any way, shape, or form deprive me of any constitutional rights. So I would treat you as any other person who was committing an unlawful assault. However, when you go through TSA lines at the airport, guess what? You're doing that voluntarily. You know, don't have to fly. You know,
that's right.
I guess. You know?
They use that argument that it is voluntary. A lot of people, they say it isn't unless, you know, for their livelihood, they have to travel. But there is going to come a time, unless they just have a full on, you know, roundup of the people where it won't be voluntary, unless you like only staying in your house. And then it could even get farther than that, meaning checkpoints on. We see them at bus stations now. We see them at the hospitals, the sports events. We're seeing the Viper teams, over 9,000 or 13,000 checkpoints this year on the streets. They're closing in, so there won't be an option to volunteer or not.
But back to my original question, Keith. What is your understanding of this civilian security force? Have we seen it yet? I mean, this last September, the graduation of these brown shirts, if you will, FEMA Corps. Is this what we're looking at, or is this going to be an arm of the Affordable Health Care Act, the enforcement arm of the Affordable Health Care Act? Is this going to be just DHS by itself? What do we I've never really been able to isolate.
To the best of my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, this graduation of the civilian force, was it not in some way, shape, or form tied in with AmeriCorps?
It's a good question.
Because it was my understanding. It was my understanding that this team was basically kind of like an AmeriCorps on steroids, where it was going to be, and I've worked for a couple of different organizations that have utilized AmeriCorps volunteers, and to be honest with you, most of the AmeriCorps volunteers that I've seen, they're kind of like burned out, dope smoking, college age hippie wannabes that are just kind of figure out where they're. I probably just pissed a couple of people off, but that's okay. They always just seem kind of like, you know, the hippie crowd, like I really don't know where I'm supposed to be in life, so I'm going to do this for a year while I kind of figure out where I want to be. And it was always my understanding that this new group that they had put out was kind of like was basically more trained to go and work with FEMA for immediate infrastructure redevelopment after a critical incident. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's at least what I understood it to be. If they're receiving any type of defensive tactics or weapons training or anything like that, I don't know about it. But then again, I would say, again, I don't know. I mean, listen, do I put anything past our government right now? No, absolutely not. So I mean, who knows? There may be ulterior motives in their training. But I mean, even if you were in a situation where you were a part of an organization that was in existence to assist FEMA, and you're going into a place like New Orleans, I mean, I could see where pepper spray training and baton training would probably come in handy. You have very, very large elements of society that were shooting at first responders during Hurricane Katrina, and also shooting at first responders during Hurricane Sandy. So, at what point does the need to defend oneself, become training that's going to be utilized against law-abiding citizens? I don't know. I really don't know.
It's a difficult question to answer. I mean, yeah, I understand that. Having been a first responder before they were called first responders, I understand that, and I've been shot at too. And it's not pleasant. It's not very pleasant to be shot at, but
changes your perspective when you take incoming fire.
Yeah, it does indeed. But with this particular regime, then we're seeing things we've never seen historically. But this feels an awful lot. I got to tell you, this what we're seeing right now feels an awful lot like 1933 Germany, and I know you've heard that before, and other people have used that before. It's like, oh, come on, I'm sure statements like that would make Chris Matthews' head explode, and Rachel Maddow's head explode as well. But don't you feel it too?
If that's the case, then man, we should pump that out nonstop, because I'd like nothing more than to see I'd love to see Rachel Madcow's head explode. That would be a great thing. Hey, but you know what? One down. They just got rid of Ed Schultz, so. He's out of there like through the proverbial goose. So that's a good thing, Well, God answers prayers.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, don't you feel though, in your heart of hearts, and looking at this, looking at where we're at, don't you feel like we're kind of at this 1933-ish, early 1930s Germany, where we're seeing this Nazi fascist kind of state turning inwardly upon its citizens? I mean, we've got, and look what happened in Cyprus with this huge haircut the depositors took. It's coming here, according to the information we have, where at any given time we could be subjected to that type of Cypriotic. I should develop a name for this: a Cypriotic siphoning or something. But I mean, you've got that. You've got the just the tremendous overreaching of power by the federal government. You got all of these things that are taking place. Isn't this what isn't this kind of like where Nazi Germany was in the early 30s? I mean, don't you feel that way, or do you feel more optimistic than I do?
No, I definitely feel that it's an encroachment. It's an unprecedented encroachment by our federal government. I hate to use that term. God, I'm trying to break the habit of that. It's not a federal government. It's a national government. Not a federal government. It's so far away from a federalist system as it could possibly be. We're divided. There isn't one aspect of society that we're not divided against. It's black versus white, gay versus straight, Christian versus Muslim. We're spending all of this time. Can you think of a time in American history when we've been more divided than we are right now? I mean, we're divided in every aspect. And again, it's classic not Cloward and Piven. It's classic Saul Alinsky tactics. This is what they do. They divide. They villainize. There's always has to be, and you'll notice. I mean, with the way that there's always an urgency. There's always an emergency. We got to pass the bill, otherwise it's going to be financial Armageddon. There's always a boogeyman. And with the boogeyman always comes the victims class. You always have a group of victims, so you always have to have the big evil whoever to go after. We had the establishment of a villainous class and the scapegoats. We saw all this stuff. But we're doomed to repeat our history, Doug, because we don't learn from it. Because people in this country go to bed every single night thinking, this is America. And things like that, whatever that may be, don't happen here.
That's right.
Okay? Our government would never be working against us. That's impossible. This is America, the land of the free and home of the brave, and wave the flags and get the apple pie out of the oven. This will never happen here because things always work out. Yeah, you know what? Jimmy Carter sucked. And what happened? Ronald Reagan came along, and you know what? Okay, so obla-di, life goes on. And you know what? Obama's not such a bad guy. He's trying. He's just misunderstood. I'm not really saying this, by the way. I'm just paraphrasing people in general. But, you know, he's not such a bad guy. And, you know, listen, he'll run his 8 years out, and then somebody else will go in there, and they'll write the course for a little bit. And it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be right, and then it'll be left for a couple of years, and it'll be right, and it'll be left for a couple of years. But when you look at the concerted effort that's been going on ever since the establishment of the Fabian Socialists to bring about change in this country, and America is the crown jewel for the socialists. If they can collapse America, they've won. They've won. In their mind, they've won. And it's amazing how many useful idiots are out there that are trying to help further this agenda. And you and I have had the conversation about Sherry Wolf, the lesbian college professor, the lesbian communist college professor in New York that I've had arguments with in the past. And, you know, Sherry, you're a useful idiot. You know, you're a lesbian communist. What communist regime in history hasn't marked your people for extermination first? Well, that just goes to show you your political ignorance, Keith, because, you know, you don't understand that this is the new socialism. Geez, I didn't know that.
Oh, folks, you listeners, you've got no idea, believe me, what Keith is saying. Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought up the Fabian socialism because that is the groundwork in socialism, stepping stone to communism. And it goes from there. Absolutely. My goodness. But no, I mean, I see us being taken down from within. I mean, we are a captured operation. There's just no two ways about it. America has become a captured operation from within. And, you know, we're the last bastion of freedom. And as you put it, the crown jewel, and we go down, it's over. I mean, life as we know it will no longer be life as we know it today.
You know, I had an interesting conversation with a libertarian, and I love these guys. I really do. I think libertarians are great to have intelligent conversations with. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I was waiting for the punchline in the libertarian.
Oh, no. Well, it's libertarians are really interesting people because you know what, they have these idealized notions that we should just be allowed to do whatever we want to do, and it's devoid of any critical thinking skills. It really is. It's a great concept. Well, let's just let people do what they want to do. You know. Sure. There's a kind of a famous anecdote that after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, of course, there was a large crowd that had been gathered outside of Independence Hall, and as Benjamin Franklin was leaving Independence Hall, a woman approached him, and she was kind of the spokesperson for the group that had gathered, and she went up and she said, "Sir, what have you given us?" And Franklin said, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it."
That's right.
And what he was referring to was the ability of a population, of a group of people to preserve this system of government that was predicated upon a concept that people were ethically and morally virtuous and had a concept of responsibility and had a concept of self-accountability and could self-police. Mm-hmm. And this is really where I think, you know, our society has really gone down the proverbial crapper because there's no sense of right or wrong. There's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of ethics. There's no sense of morals. There's no sense of virtue. And again, this is the result of a concerted effort to get God out of our society, to get God out of our schools, to get God out of every aspect of our lives. I think it's fascinating that we're having this argument about gay marriage now. First of all, in my opinion, and I'm kind of going all over the map here, I know, gay marriage I think is an issue of am I for it? Absolutely not. First of all, I would still like to know when exactly did the state become involved in marriage. Last time I checked, marriage was a sacrament. This is something that is between people and God. So when did the state ever get involved? Okay, do I think that what?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the national government has no right coming down and saying, well, you can either have gay marriage or not have gay marriage. It should be up to the states.
Right.
But the fact that we're even having this conversation is proof positive that we now live in a society that is immoral and godless. We have turned our back on God, and we're reaping the fruits of that decision right now.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% accurate, Keith. And well, let me ask you this, since you brought this up. What's your take on where the Supreme Court is going to come down on this issue?
I don't know. I would really like to see them kick it back to the states and say, you know what, we're just not even going to deal with this. This is a states' rights issue. This is a perfect example of the people have spoken. You pass a law, or you hold a. I don't want to say you pass a law. I misspoke. You put a referendum question on a ballot, and people vote for it. And if it's not depriving a person, I mean, the idea of the Supreme Court is to test the veracity of a law in light of the Constitution. So if it's not a law that deprives people of constitutional rights, well, where in the Constitution does it say that two men or two women have a right to get married?
Exactly. Okay. It's not about civil rights. It's not about equal rights. It's anything but about that. So you're absolutely correct.
But if you say that, this is wrong, if you say that this is immoral, well, suddenly now you're a bigot and you're a racist and, you're to be shunned by society, for speaking your mind. But then again, we have to have a demon class and we have to have a victim class. So the homosexuals are the victims and Christians are the evil people that are speaking their mind against, what they think is right. So this is a hate group now because, you got a problem. Everything is upside down. Okay, we got to ban guns. We got to get guns out of our society, but yet we got to set up vending machines for marijuana.
Yeah, of course.
Everything that's right is now wrong, and everything that was wrong is now right.
Everything is being redefined instead of reinforced, as our Judeo-Christian principle foundations are being rocked. Keith, it's been a pleasure. We got to cut you loose. We're late for the top of the hour break. I want to say God bless you, my friend. And folks, you can listen to Keith beginning next week on 96 K-Rock. If you haven't done so already, visit KeithOnTheAir.com. That's KeithOnTheAir.com. And of course, like him on Facebook, Keith Hanson Show. Keith Hanson Show. Keith, God bless you for joining us. Thank you so much, my friend.
Doug, Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great, safe Easter weekend. Don't eat too much ham. And
that's right.
Congratulations
look forward to
on the new show.
Yeah.
Thank you. And hey, Joe, happy birthday, by the way. Happy Big 3-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I can't believe I got to tell you, Keith, he's adopted. He really is.
Well, 30 is the new 21, so you're good to go.
All right, my friend. God bless you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, I was going to say, and please, I'd love to have you on the new show. And I gotta let you know that if you come on, just be prepared to deal with Smitty. That's all. But
Smitty, you know what? I'll be ready for Smitty. But thank you. If the invitation still extends next week, I'll look you up.
It would be a pleasure to have you on. So.
All right, my friend. God bless. Have a great Easter. Thanks for joining us tonight. That's Keith.
Thanks for having me.
Hanson. All right, buddy. Keith Hanson, Keith on the Air.
Into our third and final hour this Friday, March 29th, edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 661-244-9839 is the phone number. We're going to take your calls in a few minutes after we cover a few stories. First off, critics are slamming Obama for protecting Monsanto and what he has done in signing the Monsanto Protection.
This is a big story, folks. This is a huge story. Go ahead, Joe.
Obama signs Monsanto Protection Act. Frankenfish heads to U.S. market. Here's an audio clip.
President Obama this week signed into law a bill that could have huge consequences on the future of food in the country. The Agricultural Appropriations Bill has been dubbed the Monsanto Protection Act by critics of the agricultural giant. That's because a provision in the law protects genetically modified seed patents from litigation over health risks. So if you get sick, too bad, you can't take it to court. Since being signed into law Tuesday, more than 250,000 people have signed a petition to President Obama.
All right, folks.
Unprecedented
Look,
attack on U.S. judicial review. Congress should not be meddling with the judicial review process based solely on the special interests of a handful of companies. Beyond what's in the bill, critics are angry about how it was passed, snuck into a huge agricultural bill without review by a committee. The law only remains in effect for 6 of giant corporations trumping the health and safety rights of the average Joe. And that's not the only food news turning stomachs. The FDA is on its way to approving so-called Frankenfish. RT's Margaret Howell has more.
A genetically modified fish with spare parts is inches away from our food supply chain. General Electric the go-ahead on an application that's been pending now for 2 years. What is this so-called Frankenfish anyway? Well, it's the biotech industry's genetically engineered fish that grows twice that of the normal rate of a real fish. That means it goes into the consumer market faster and at higher rates. This lab animal is loaded with questions that science just can't answer. The biggest one, how does this affect the health of somebody who eats it? Here's what we do know. The lab test of only 6 of these fish showed an elevated level of the growth hormone IGH1, which has been linked to breast, colon, and prostate cancer. With the FDA's approval, this would be the first genetically modified animal allowed in the U.S. for consumption. This is important.
That, along with they're going on to continue to talk about the fish there, but not only fish, there will be genetically modified seeds, crops, and other edible items that will be consumed by the people of the United States of America and other countries. And even though there was more than 250,000 signatures on a petition calling for the president to veto the bill, he signed it into law, as one would expect. And
I received, I received an email from one of our listeners, and let me just see where this is here, because this is important. This listener had mapped out the ownership and the connections of Monsanto to the government, and I couldn't believe it when I read this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I got to find it here. It's just amazing here. But no, really, there's no real legitimate reason, for example, to have this bill signed into law or have this Protection Act signed into law. And I'm searching for this email I received. In fact, I had printed it out, and it's in my office at the moment. But
I got it right here. Monsanto
okay.
Government ties.
Yes. What are they? I mean, can you explain to the listeners why? Because by looking at this will tell you Monsanto is the agricultural equivalent of Goldman Sachs, I suppose. That's a good way to put it. And if you look at who is part of Monsanto, how Monsanto has infiltrated our government, this is purely fascism. This is fascism. By definition. And
the government has been financing research for the genetic engineering of the food for a long time now, since the year of my birth, 30 years now.
Right.
Now it says the company is working with the government's U.S. Department of Agriculture. Delta and Pine Land is about to become part of the world's largest supplier of patented genetically modified seeds, Monsanto Corporation of St. Louis, Missouri. And it goes on to say relations between Monsanto and Delta and Pine Land and the USDA on closer scrutiny show the deep and dark side of the much heralded genetic revolution in agriculture.
See, and Obama has been using the NDAA, and I'll classify this, or I'll maybe I can be like Steve Quayle and have Hagmannisms. This is the NDAA excuse. This allows him to unilaterally assassinate Americans, like the NDAA, basically. But, of course, the Monsanto rider, H.R. 993, I believe it is. Is that what it is? H.R. 993, for those purists who want to check this out. H.R. 993. Of course, he'll never enforce this. It'll never be enforced, just like the NDAA signing of the statement was. So,
well,
go ahead.
Even worse under this, it says, under the World Trade Organization rules on free trade in agriculture, countries are forbidden to impose their own national health restrictions on genetically modified imports if it is deemed to be an unfair trade barrier. It begins to become clear why the government and the agribusiness in the U.S. was, or which during the late 80s pushed through GATT and Uruguay round for creation of the World Trade Organization with its supernatural arbitrary powers over the world agriculture trade. It all fits into a neat picture of painted seeds. The forced World Trade Organization member nations under threat of the World Trade Organization sanctions, and now a terminator of suicide seeds.
Right.
And they go into a closer look at who runs these organizations, and we know Bill Gates has invested lots of money into Monsanto and has become a partner. That is not in this article as far as I can see that you have here. But there are many government, Monsanto is a government corporation. It is pushing out small farmers, the Food Safety Modernization Act.
That's right. You got it. You hit the nail right on the head with this.
It makes regular seeds, the sharing of seeds, illegal. It makes, and we've seen this separate issue, but the feeding homeless in many cities has become a finable or arrestable offense.
But also too, that's all well and good. But don't forget, let's investigate the power behind this.
Well, the power is the United States government working alongside with the technocratic elites of this world. This goes with Codex Alimentarius and the plans for depopulation through control of the food and the nutrients that are in those foods.
But who worked for Obama's former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton? She worked for the Rose Law Firm. The Rose Law Firm was counsel to who? Monsanto. Elena Kagan, U.S. Supreme Court. Kagan, as Federal Solicitor General, had previously argued in favor of or worked for Monsanto in the case of Monsanto v. Geertsen seed case before the Supreme Court. So, we don't think that there's any conflict of interest. Of course there is. Or any reason, backdoor approach to this? Of course there is. The deck is stacked in favor of Monsanto and against the American people.
Yeah,
and if you say, well, Obama didn't know this. Of course he knew this.
Yes, he did. You can go on the internet and look up all the SWAT teams that have raided the small food co-ops or organic food distribution places.
That's right.
Guns drawn, all the way full, as Keith was describing earlier with the SWAT teams, their objective is to present an overwhelming force. They were even raiding Amish farms.
And by the way, folks, to take Keith Hanson for what he was saying in terms of the SWAT team, don't read into what he was saying. He was just saying, look, in terms of the SWAT team, that's their job, and understand what their job is. He wasn't speaking in favor of that, against constitutionalists. He was saying, he was explaining very simply the core approach of a SWAT team, or the core, what they need to do. So don't associate him with saying, well, I'm in favor of SWAT teams raiding, these raw milk farms. That's not what he was saying. Because I happened to get an email during the break, and I thought, that's not at all what he was saying.
One more piece of news before we go to phone calls, or you hit whatever you want to.
Right.
We have, out of Florida, Planned Parenthood officials arguing over the right to post-birth abortion, showing you the true decline and lack of morality of this nation. Florida legislators considering a bill to require abortionists to provide medical care to an infant who survives an abortion were shocked during a committee hearing this week when a Planned Parenthood official endorsed a right to murder or post-birth abortion. or infanticide, whatever you want to call it. Alyssa Lapote Snow, the lobbyist representing the Florida Alliance of Planned Parenthood affiliates, testified that her organization believes the decision to kill an infant who survives a failed abortion should be left up to the woman seeking the abortion and the doctor. It is terrifying enough to know that abortions are going on in this country. It is even worse to know that they are legal. But to have a president, and we have Obama on record supporting infanticide for babies, and not even babies, but up to 3 months, 6 months, death up to 3 months old after birth if you don't want them. And what he said about his children, we don't want our children, have their life ruined over a mistake they made one night. The lack of regard for human life, the lack of love for fellow human beings, that regardless of how they're related to you, the lack of love between humans from one person to another, no matter how high a position you are in the government or how low of a position you are in society or vice versa, it doesn't matter. There is equality as long as we are humans. But that is gone. People are driven now more by hate. People are embracing this sin. And this is why we are under judgment. And this is why our nation is and will continue to die.
Exactly. Now, how much more can we say about abortion in terms of what the intent is? That we're talking about here. When you're talking about post-birth abortions, 3 months, 6 months, isn't that just murder? Isn't that what we're talking about? Is murder? Look, I don't know. That to me, that's what it is.
And thanks, Brandy and Chad. Up to 3 years, a baby. Up to 3 years.
Up to 3 years?
That's what she says. And that sounds about right, because 3 months didn't sound right. It was longer than that. 3 years. And I believe it. And I bet we have the articles that say the same, but regardless.
Right. Well, this kind of brings me into something I just want to address here just for the next several minutes, and then we're going to go to your calls. I just want to, April is coming up. Another 3 days? It's going to be the 1st of April, 4 days, 1st of April. And the month of,
we make it.
Well, we'll make it. God willing, we'll make it, okay? I'll stipulate to that, as we say in court. But look, we know from when we're looking at everything, all the global events that are taking place and have taken place and being set up, what are we being set up for? We're being set up for a great fall. And one thing I like to do is I like to take certain issues and knowing where we are today, and I like to look back a little bit and see, all right, well, how did we get here and who brought us here? And I know people say, well, why is this important? Well, if we know how we got here, if we know who brought us here, if we know some of the factors involved in this, we can kind of see what the plans are for the future. This is one of the reasons why I like to point back to the opening ceremonies of the London Olympics. Now, Nathan Leal talked about this, Doc Marquis talked about this, others have talked about the opening ceremonies of the 30th Olympiad, the London Olympics that took place here this past 2012, and the oddities surrounding that. Folks, do you remember all the oddities surrounding all of that? Well, I'm going to take you on something else here that I came across, and I mentioned this before, but if you have time this weekend, or if the Spirit so moves you, I would recommend this, because this year, or this coming month in April 15th is going to be the anniversary of the sinking of the British passenger liner, the Titanic, and that sunk after colliding with an iceberg. during her maiden voyage from Southampton, UK, to New York City. The sinking of the Titanic caused the deaths of half of the number of people that were perished in the World Trade Center. You might think, well, wait a minute. What in the world does the sinking of the Titanic have to do with what's going on today? Fair question. That was my initial thought as well. Okay, yeah. And Joe...
I'll just keep my mouth quiet. I mean, I understand the historical value, but go ahead.
No, I know, and then Joe and I were actually almost got into a wrestling match, before the program because I wanted just to bring this up. Look, if people understand the satanic Luciferian occult agenda and the power families of today and the power brokers of today, the people that are stealing your money, the people that are stealing the money at a bank account in Cyprus, they're the people, the architects of the Federal Reserve. And Joe, for your sake, I'll cut this really short. That way you don't have to listen through my diatribe. But one day, I guarantee you this, one day in the near future, you're going to say, hey, Dad, you know what? You're right. Okay, that said, look, there are two things that, after research about this issue, that I believe, and I believe very strongly. Number one, the Titanic didn't sink. Do you hear me? The Titanic didn't sink. Now, the ship sank, and it was named the Titanic, but it wasn't the Titanic. It was the Olympic. The ships were changed. The second thing is, it wasn't an accident. You might think, again, this guy's lost in his office nut. Okay, now he's talking crazy. Too much brandy before the show. Well, look, here's what I found. And I think this is one of the greatest tragedies in the past couple hundred years. It was the sinking of the Titanic, when you consider what happened. We didn't have a central bank, or since the early 1830s, America did not have a central bank at all. The power structure at the time, the families in power or the Illuminati wanted a central bank. They desperately wanted a central bank in America so they could have this bottomless reservoir from which to draw money from and to enrich themselves and also to destroy this country. Well, many people will point to Jekyll Island, the Federal Reserve, the establishment of the Federal Reserve. Everybody's saying that's when this country was captured, when Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. And to an extent, they're correct. But what led up to that? The Titanic led up to that. I'll tell you why the Titanic led up to that. After the meeting of the 7 people on Jekyll Island back in 1910, that set in motion the implementation of the Federal Reserve. Now, there were certain people that were bound and determined to stop the Federal Reserve. And those people include Guggenheim, Strauss, and a couple of other people. Well, guess who was on the Titanic when it sank? That's correct. The very people that could have stopped the Federal Reserve from coming into existence. And again, out of deference to Joe and our conversation prior to the show, I will just say this: in looking over where we are today, if you follow the lineage of the people involved in the central banks in Europe and the ties that they have to London and what they're going to do here in the United States, you're going to find that they're the very people that were behind the Federal Reserve, the people like the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgan, Paul Warburg, and others. But if you start connecting the dots from the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds to the satanic Illuminati bloodlines and what have you, and the satanic secret brotherhoods and even the Jesuits, the Jesuit University and such, the Bavarian aspect of things, you're going to find that, and I think, and I'll just leave this as a homework assignment for you folks who want to really get into this, begin to study who was on the Titanic, who perished on the Titanic that could have stopped the Federal Reserve from the implementation. Look at who owned the Titanic, who owned the White Star Line, and look at what happened in the time period when the Titanic and the Olympic were docked at the same spot. Look at the coal strike and how that all worked out. There are a lot of oddities with respect to the Titanic. And the reason I bring this up is this. Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, we are being taught and fed lies, but we're being taught revisionist history, I believe. I believe the Titanic is probably one of the most, you talk about conspiracy theories, it was probably one of the biggest conspiracy theories conspiracies at that time. And when you're talking about 1,500 deaths of 1,500 men, women, and children, including the very people who could have stopped the Federal Reserve, who could have made a difference to where we are today.
You say that? There have been people that could have stopped the Federal Reserve at any time. We could do it right now.
Well, of course. But, it's like the snowball effect. Isn't it easier to stop the snowball before it starts rolling down the hill, or as opposed to stopping it when it's a boulder of snow halfway down the hill and you try to stop it and it runs over you. You get run over by it.
Yeah, nothing in life is easy, but it would have been easier if it were never created, but everything happens for a reason, and we see the end result of that reason.
Well, right.
Playing out today in America.
But my point is this. There were a number of very rich and very powerful people who made it very clear that they were not in favor of the Federal Reserve System. J.P. Morgan was ordered, I dare say, by the powers that behind him, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and even to an extent the Jesuits, to build the Titanic, the unsinkable ship that would actually prove to be the death ship of those who opposed the plan for this Federal Reserve System. These rich and powerful men would have been able to block this establishment of this central bank. The power and fortunes had to be taken out of their hands, and they did this via the Titanic. And you might think that this is so preposterous because it's overkill. Why didn't they just poison the 3 or 4 people, or shoot them, or strangle them, or throw them off a bridge or something? Why would you put them on a ship and sink the ship? Because a number of reasons. But if you understand the fact that we are looking at a blood sacrifice, and understand the thoughts, the thinking process of the Illuminati. And I don't want to go off the deep end or seem like I'm going off the deep end, but I would just urge everyone in the final seconds here of my monologue, I would urge everyone just to study what happened with the Titanic with an open mind and look at the people who are on board. Look at the circumstances of the Titanic, and then think from that point in history, think forward to where we are today, and to the Kennedy assassination, and so on and so forth. But this Titanic thing really caught my eye. It really did, and I think as an investigator, it caught my eye, and I thought, man, this is really something. And there's enough anecdotal evidence, if not direct evidence, or direct evidence that would show that, you know what, we could very well be. And why is it still sitting on the? Why hasn't it been brought up? Because, and I would contend or assert that it has not been brought up because bringing it up would show the repairs that were made to the Olympic as opposed to the Titanic that would separate the two ships. So there was there was with the Olympic, and this is part of your homework assignment. If you're interested in looking at this, there was a collision between the two ships, between the Olympic and another ship that the other ship was repaired with pig iron, and the reason it's still sitting on the bottom of the Atlantic is because bringing it up would show, and very close inspection would show the repairs were made, and it would show that it was the Olympic, not the Titanic, that's sitting at the bottom of the ocean. But the bottom line is that kind of brings us to where we are today, and it kind of connects some of the families, the blood lines, showing you where we are today. But the people that they were trying to get out of that equation John Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidore Straus. These were very wealthy people who opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. They perished in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and they were eliminated by the people, by the Illuminati. And I just do your homework. Just use this as a homework assignment. And I think you'll be very surprised that what I'm saying is perhaps true. But I'll close with that. Joe?
We're going to go to the phone calls in just 1 second. I want to read The Blessed Man. This is just a small excerpt out of a book someone sent me, Days of Praise. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The first psalm constitutes a contrast between the godly individual who delights in God's law and the ungodly person who is destined for destruction. Blessed literally means happy, and the habits of such a happy one are described as not only avoiding the thought patterns and lifestyle of the ungodly, but also delighting in and obeying the Word of God. Our text described 4 results of being blessed or happy in the biblical sense. First, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, with the implication being to dwell in a secure, bountiful state. The verb plant means transplanted, now firmly rooted and provided for, no longer vulnerable, tentative, or undernourished. Second, the bringing forth of the fruit in his season. One does not so nourish a tree without any purpose. Here, following the analogy, the godly individual, nourished and protected by his Maker, can likewise expect to accomplish a purpose. In this case, to bear spiritual, eternal fruit. Third, the leaf shall not wither. Eternal life is present possession of all who have been transplanted by the Lord. Such one can expect to be faithfully brought forth from precious fruit in each season of his life. Fourth, whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Success in each endeavor undertaken by one whose delight is the Lord can be expected. Such success defined by that which brings spiritual maturity and eternal life and prosperity, as he defines prosperity. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. And I want to thank you. I don't remember exactly who sent this to me, but this is an excellent book and a very inspirational daily reading. You get up and whatever day it is, you read the...
What's the name of the book?
Days of Praise.
By?
Not sure. It's for April and March, April, and May for 2013. It looks like it's a quarterly publication. Moving to the phone lines, we're going to go to 703 area code first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I called before and mentioned I had 2 prophetic dreams.
Right.
And just didn't get around to getting through it last time. And boy, listening to tonight's show is just pretty. It made me angry. In the sense
How
of
so?
Well, because I know a lot about what is going on, and I know a lot of the people involved with what's going on. And I live in the D.C. area, and I know a lot of people that are powerful. And so anyhow, a lot of what the guest had to say kind of sparked a little anger in me.
Do you think he was being disingenuous, or do you think that he was... because I know Keith, and Keith was talking from a purist sense. But what in particular anger do you think?
I wouldn't go to that. I wouldn't use the word pure with regard to what he had to offer. And the basis for that, from my experience, is if you're motivated to follow orders, what is your motivation? Is it the cause and foundation that agrees with our Father in Christ, even the Constitution? Or is it really the fact that you're securing your own individual home security, hence the homeland security aspect of the reality of what you're doing as an officer and anyone in service? And believe me,
I would say, wait a minute. You know he's not associated with Homeland Security. He's a contractor. He's a firearms instructor.
And that's irregardless. It doesn't really matter. The principle, the spirit, transcends everything. What I'm talking about is what he had to offer as far as the foundation for use of force and how you do things. I've met people who, they're boxed into conventional thinking, just like what they're describing and lamenting over, the fact that the compartmentalization of and the structure of our government and how it works, and it keeps people from actually doing the right thing as a result, and in the right manner, and for the right reason ultimately. Not to preserve their own security at the expense of security itself. That's what you do when you don't stop and think, and if you don't actually make a stand fast and do no harm and resist any attempts to do anything other than that, whether it be from higher ups or from those that you would serve and protect. But anyhow, as far as so you can go into specifics and how that works. But as far as like the prophetic dreams I had, I had them here locally in this D.C. area, and they weren't. They were prophetic dreams. I heard the callers call in about the dreams. And I would suggest that if you really want to get, some good revelations on the show, make a point to ask them if they really truly believe, without a doubt, that it's a prophetic, not just a dream given by God, but a prophetic dream, because now is the time for those kind of things. I mean, Scripture talks about that would be pouring out right about now. Anyhow, so my first dream that I had was here locally, and it was about the people here locally, right, in this D.C. area. And I was in the dream, I was in a local establishment that still exists. Only in the dream there wasn't a roof. And there are these booths, and there's people from the area that are, in this place. And a storm that you can see over, because there's no roof on this building, over D.C. begins to happen. And then it becomes just massive. And as I'm sitting there, I'm noticing that the people are just doing what they normally do. And they're not even, inspired to look at the ridiculous storm that is increasing with intensity and making just tremendous amounts of noise. And then and there's lightning and all kinds of stuff, and wind. Then the storm gets destructive, and they're still not moved to look even at what's going on. And then all of a sudden, there's the storm just gets huge, just massive, it's building and just increasing, and the city of DC area is getting destroyed, and the storm's starting to get to the point where it's going to come to where we are. But right about that point, there's a pillar of fire, just like in that movie with Charlton Heston when he plays Moses and the pillar of fire leads the Israelites through. It looked just like that. And it was coming down and it was just destroying everything, destroying the city. And it was coming towards, but at that point, people actually stopped and looked over their shoulder. That's all they did. They looked over their shoulder and then continued with what they were doing as if nothing was going on. And that's what I noticed in the dream. There was a person in a booth, and they looked toward me, and I couldn't see their face. I could see everything, but I couldn't see their face. But I knew this was a friend, and we just kind of knew together that we'd been among these people. We'd been trying to tell them what was happening, and that they should be moved, and we realized at this point that there was nothing that we could say or do to try to wake these people up, to get them to move, even as this pillar of fire at this point was coming to destroy them. And then the pillar of fire all of a sudden just came and was approaching, and was so obvious that it was going to destroy where we were at. And at that point, the person whose face I couldn't see, we both stood up at the same time and shouted, "Make straight the way of the Lord."
Okay. How do you interpret that? What's your interpretation? I realize the difference.
Well, hold on, I just lost it there for a second. So then, at that moment, I realized that if I didn't turn around and leave with total, complete, perfect forward progress, that I would perish. And I woke up instantly knowing what I had seen, and it was the destruction of this area, and that I knew what it was like to be like Lot. So that was the first dream.
All right. What's your interpretation of that, if I can ask? I mean, I understand you receiving a dream and then interpreting are two different things. What's your feeling?
Well, the interpretation is prophetic. It's going to happen. The person whose face I couldn't see in that dream was the Holy Spirit. And the second dream matches the first dream, only it's more specific. And the second dream was I had inside the place where I was on 9/11 when the plane flew over it. And I had this dream. I'm in my place, and I feel the presence of people at my door in the stream, and I'm in my living room. I've got my couch and I'm watching the news, and they don't come in, they don't announce themselves, and I can't see them, but I can feel them. And I say, "Come in," and the door's open, who's ever there. And these two people come in. One of them's the person whose face I still can't see. The other one I can see looks like a normal person, and he's got a notebook in his hand, and he's something to write with. And they sit on the couch, and they never speak, and they're never frightened or moved or anything. So I have these two people sitting on my couch. The news is on, and I'm commenting after each story on the news. And as I hear a report, I'll comment on it, and then I'll say what I think is going to happen as a result of what I've just seen on the report. And as this keeps happening after each news story, I suddenly began to notice that the next report began to echo what I had said should happen as a result of this last news report. And then all of a sudden I noticed that each time I would say what I thought would happen as a result of the report, the next report would come quicker and was specific to what I had just said, until I got to this point about how I thought New York would get blown up with a nuke or something as a result of what I had just saw in the last report. And when I said that, it was almost the next report was almost me speaking as I was speaking, that kind of an echo. And then there was just a light flash suddenly that the room just lit up. And, of course, because of what I just said, I thought this was, some kind of an event of a nuclear type. I hit the deck, and as I'm trying to hit the deck, I shout to the two guys, get down. They were unmoved. So now I'm prostrated on the floor, and I'm not dead. And the room is just super white. And so I lift my head up to look, and all of a sudden I see this Diamond Hill mountain crystal-looking thing, and it's huge, and it's way up. And then I'm looking at it, and it's coming closer, and it's the brightest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then all of a sudden there's this light that rises up behind it, which is brighter. And it gets even brighter than that. And the intensity of this light is so bright that at that point, and it keeps increasing with its brightness and its power, that I know that it's going to overcome me, and I can't, it's just too powerful. So I call upon our Father in Christ and instantly wake up and know that I had just seen the city of heaven and the light of the glory of God.
All right. Wow.
Those were the two prophetic dreams.
When did you have these? When did you have these dreams? How long ago?
I think about that 2003, 2004.
Okay.
Well, God bless you for your call, and thanks for sharing your dream and dreams. Many people are having these visions and dreams, and we definitely like to hear them. And we were talking about doing a show on dreams, once a month, once a week.
Yeah.
And it's something we're going to consider and make a decision on. But God bless you. You have a great weekend, caller, and we'll talk with you later.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.
We got about 8 minutes left in the show. We'll take one more caller. 303 area code. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
For I am not ashamed of the gospel of the Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation for those who believe.
Amen.
I love it.
It's really interesting hearing that caller's two prophetic dreams. You can tell how intense he took it by the inflection in his voice.
Have you had any visions or dreams? I got to tell you, I've got nothing. I got nothing. Okay.
Well, last night I had a couple waking dreams, but I couldn't remember them. I know that I have had prophetic dreams in the past, and nothing to really speak upon. There were just kind of personal issues in my life, and
right.
I actually had a dream where I've seen myself die, but I'm not afraid of death in any way, shape, or form. I more or less put my fear in God, my love and respect in Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's very good. Well, I'll tell you what,
to place, of all these things going on in the world right now, they're capsulating or captivating people's attention. They are worrying, making people get anxiety, scared. They are, unsure of the future of what's going to happen. We're going to be at war by Monday, by Saturday. People are unsure. And I see a lot of human reactions. The natural, like we talked about, defense mechanisms built into our body, where you have this period of irrationality based on human fears, and it's contrary to what we know. And I wish more people would trust and have faith in the unseen in the Lord.
I agree. But I also think, too, that what we're seeing is just this massive distraction against the real issues. The real issues are, in my view, are the economic issues that are about to strike here in the West. That's my view. You look at North Korea, proxy of Russia, or a proxy of China. You look at everything else, proxy of Russia in the Middle East, Syria. That's about to blow. But I think it's all distractions against the real takedown of the United States. That's the objective, and that's my view. Caller, your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely a distraction. I mean, I don't truly think, other than what they'll allow to happen to us, North Korea is no threat, but they are China's junkyard dog. I heard a report that they tested Iran's nuke. So all this saber-rattling by Kim Jong-un, I think, is to take a distraction off of Iran and that war footing with Iran, making us spend our resources handling North Korea in this battle of North versus South. This is how it works. Everybody gets their fears wrapped around a news story. And like Keith said earlier, that 15, 30-second soundbite that they hear in MSN, CNN, any of the talking heads, that becomes their expertise. It's North Korea, North Korea. We need not to take our eye off of these evil, communistic and Muslim Islamicists. I like the term coined on your show, Islamunism, and I definitely believe Obama is an Islamunist because he's working for these people to bring down the United States, and it's going to go hand in hand. There's going to be a financial crisis. There's no question about that. That's why if you're questioning taking your money out of the bank, you shouldn't question it. You should just do it.
God bless you. God bless you. Man, I'm going to tell you something. I would agree 100% with that statement, and thank you for saying that, and thank you for having that. You've got some insight, having talked to you before. Anyway, we kind of get to know callers, I don't know, as sitting on this end of the microphone, and we get to know callers. You've got some tremendous insight, by the way. I just want to say thank you for that, as well as a good, very, very well-grounded spiritually. But
well, thank you for your show. And like you guys said earlier about criticism and even debate, a lot of shows have lost that. They've lost my viewership. The main shows, the main conspiracy shows, especially, I've landed in a home that is not ashamed for one moment about talking about spiritual affairs and then the reality of our world. Thank you guys so much, and thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Yeshua HaMashiach. Bless your name.
Amen. Bless you, sir, and have a great weekend, my friend. Thank you so much for your call.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you. And I wish there were more people that would have radio shows, have blogs, outlets of getting their voice heard, promoting Jesus. I mean, we need people who will stand there and teach the Word of God, teach the blessings and the love of Christ, because a lot of people don't care about it, and I think some of that is because of lack of exposure to understand and understanding of what that brings. People think, oh, it's old and boring, and the Bible being so boring to read, but the stories in it are anything but boring. It's so fascinating.
But where does it start, though? And folks, each and every one of you listening to this program, this is my view.
Yeah.
But see, you guys listening to this program, if you are Christians listening to this program, you'll celebrate Easter this weekend. And during your Easter celebration, whether it's just you and your husband and children, or just you and your children, or maybe just you yourself, maybe you and a neighbor, maybe just, whatever the combination might be, if you've got somebody in your life, or if it's just by phone or whatever, speak to them. And certainly you can actually talk to them, not only about what's going on in the world and have that conversation and see where they're at and perhaps help them prepare. But you can also talk to them about the spiritual. Because how many of us, when we really get together for a spiritual holiday like Easter, how many of us really talk about the spiritual aspect of it?
Really, none. And that's such a huge issue because we need to only have that holiday or day of remembrance for the sacrifice the Lord made, but it shouldn't be just that day. It needs to be every day, and there should not be Easter bunnies or Easter eggs or Santa Claus or any of those things involved in any of the holidays or any of the days of worship of the Lord. It is ridiculous. It's paganism, but we are at the end of the show. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening tonight. We're going to be back Monday.
Don't forget Monday, 9 o'clock special time.
With V, yep, and Wednesday, Stan Dale. And we might have some YouTubes pop up this weekend. We're going to really try and work on that hard. But with that said, you guys have a very safe and relaxing weekend. I hope each and every one of you read your Bible and draws closer to the Lord. And with that.
And for those of you who are really interested in following up on the bloodlines and the Illuminati lines and the power behind the power,
call my
go ahead. Yeah, call. No, but go ahead and do some research about the Titanic. I'm sure you're going to know what you find. God bless you. Have a great weekend.